to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and it is time for us to get together another week once more to talk about professional wrestling right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application. We're going to do this for a couple of hours. Thank you for being here on this 11th of March 2026. Hope you're having a good week so far. You know what would make your week better? If you left a like on this video or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Well, and it just turns out it would make my week a little better as well. So, might as well just go with the synergy. We got ourselves a show with all sorts of topics tonight. We're talking about a whole bunch of things. We've got a review. First and foremost, we've got a review lined up here tonight. CMLL's La Noche de la Amazonas, the all-women's show that happened a few days ago in New Mexico on Friday evening. I will be talking about that. We'll be reviewing it to more than just talking. We're going to be diving into it and reviewing it. Other than that, look, we're going to be talking about Aaron Wolf and his booking in New Japan. We're going to be talking about Road Dogg leaving WWE. We're going to talk about Dave Finlay, people getting hired and fired, myAEW. Look, there's all sorts of stuff to talk about. So we might as well get right to it. Thank you so very much for being here. Earlier today, on the day that I'm recording this, which is March 9, 2026, All Elite Wrestling put out a press release announcing the launch of myAEW, a centralized streaming destination for AEW fans. Let's read the press release, shall we? We love ourselves some PR. Is it because I write a lot of PR and copy in my shoot job and Yes. Because then I can overtly criticize people who aren't good at their jobs and like, this sucks. What was the press release that we read a couple of days ago? And I'm like, I'm sure this is AI, and we ran it through an AI detector and it was like 100% AI. It was it was the Dude Wipes. It was the Dude Wipes press release. And I read it. You remember, we read it. I read it on stream. And I was like, this is all AI. There's no way. And sure enough. Kiswe. How do we pronounce this? Does anyone know? Kiswe. I don't know how to pronounce this. We'll say Kiswe. We'll do that now. Kiswe, the global leader in streaming technology and services, and All Elite Wrestling, one of the most dynamic brands in professional wrestling, today announced the global launch of myAEW, a new digital platform for All Elite Wrestling, powered by Kiswe. The platform gives fans immersive access to live and on-demand events outside the United States and Canada. Very, very important distinction here. A dedicated fast channel with ad-supported viewing available to fans globally, and more exciting features to come in the near future. The myAEW.com platform is designed to bring the global AEW fan base an immersive digital experience, connecting fans with the best in-ring action, behind-the-scenes moments, and exclusive digital content, laying the foundation to become the central hub for fans of all fans of professional wrestling. So, what does this sound like? If we read this description here, this one that we just read here, platform designed to bring the global AEW fan base an immersive digital experience, connecting fans with the best in-ring action, behind-the-scenes moments, and exclusive digital content, laying the foundation to become the central hub for all fans of professional wrestling. What does this sound like? It kind of sounds like the WWE network, doesn't it? If I were to just make a little search here, if I could spell, that would probably even be better. But let's see if I can't find. I wish I had the press release for the announcement of the network. I should have planned for this. But I just thought, like, interesting. like I'm reading it there, reading it out loud. I'm like, oh, wait a second. That kind of sounds like the WWE network, right? All right, let's continue. Launching ahead of AEW Revolution, which features stars like MJF, Hangman Adam Page, Jon Moxley, Willow Nightingale, FTR, and the Young Bucks. This partnership marks the beginning of a long-term evolution for myAEW, with continued advancements and developments over the next year. We are excited to partner with Kiswe for the launch of the new myAEW platform, said AEW CEO, GM, and head of creative Tony Khan. Kiswe has set the standard for digital content across all forms of sports and entertainment, and we are proud to have AEW alongside other leaders in this space as we continue to evolve the platform and best serve fans around the world. The partnership with AEW underscores Kiswe's ability to build and support streaming platforms featuring a variety of live and on-demand content with flexible region-specific pricing. AEW has an incredible vision for the future of their fan experience, and Kiswe is proud to be the technology partner powering it, said Glenn Booth, CEO of Kiswe. myAEW was built to become the central hub for the AEW community, directly connecting one of the most passionate fan bases in sports and entertainment to the content they love by giving them unprecedented access to the ring and beyond. How big is this? Kiswe, global leader and whatnot. This is it here. Kiswe, your D2C streaming partner. And do they have a client list? Like, do we know the Black Sabbath apparently was, Smosh. Wow. Oh, here we go. Partners. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Okay. That's fine. Yeah, they're playing in the big leagues, aren't they? They're playing in the big leagues. That's fine. Okay. Good for them. So that settles that question that I had. Jesus. It's Kiswe. Oh, Lady Layton found the press release. WWE Network will be the first network to ever launch a premium 24/7 streaming service with original programming, live content, and on-demand library that the WWE universe can access anywhere. I mean, we're not using the exact same terminology, of course, but the global AEW fan base, an immersive digital experience connecting fans with the best in-ring action, behind-the-scene moments, and exclusive digital content. We're not that far off. It's kind of the same pitch. That's, we're just using different terminology. Thank you for looking at that. Thank you for finding that. I think this, look, you remember a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or something, or 2 months ago, there was a trademark filing for myAEW. Remember this? People were wondering what the hell that could be. I don't think anyone was really expecting a streaming service. I don't think anyone was really expecting a full-on streaming service. I wasn't, especially after settling in with Warner Bros. Discovery and having the HBO Max stuff. Of course, the international things have all been the international markets have all been a blind spot. I can agree with. I concur that there's stuff you want to be able to get into, right? So, there's markets you want to be able to access. Clearly, there's a demand in certain parts of the world, overseas at the very least, and not even overseas, even in Mexico, for some AEW stuff. So it's all very exciting. But this comes kind of out of nowhere, right? But as we noted, this is mostly an international thing. It's minded for people abroad. Because Brandon Thurston here over at the WrestleNomics, he put together a comparative table here of all of the offers in all of the countries in which myAEW will be available. So you can see here, well, you can see in the table that he provided that everything regarding pay-per-views is not available in North America. Just as simple as that, anything available, anything, aside from buying standalone pay-per-views in Canada, right? Because for us, it was pretty much only Amazon, or you could still do YouTube. You could do Amazon, or, you could use your VPN, and go buy it off a Triller. That's an option I've heard people use. I've heard that being tossed around. But the most interesting thing is that is that outside of having access to the standalone pay-per-views, they have subscription models. So there's actually tiers that you can subscribe to that will give you access to AEW content. So their basic subscription, monthly subscription, will give you access to live Dynamites and Collisions, the AEW TV archive, and will also give you access to Ring of Honor. So the Ring of Honor TV and the pay-per-view during the month that you're subscribed, and the price is actually really reasonable. The price is legitimately reasonable. $8 a month. That's a tremendous price point. But it gets even better if you ask me, because then you can move up to the next tier, which is the monthly tier, and then you have you get the pay-per-views included in this. So you get the pay-per-views, the pay-per-view that's available in the month of your subscription, right? And then, like they say, 90 days during the pay-per-view month, live Dynamites and Collisions, AEW TV archive, Ring of Honor TV archive, live Ring of Honor pay-per-views, and then select AEW pay-per-view archives. I'm not quite sure what that is about. And it's $20. It's $20 a month. That's crazy. Like the pay-per-views are like, in Canada, it's like $55. And you can get the pay-per-view anywhere else in the world. You get it for $20 US, plus a whole bunch of other shit. Plus Ring of Honor, plus live Dynamite and Collision, and holy fuck. So, and this is essentially the Triller AEW Plus offer. The AEW Plus offer that was on Triller. This is essentially what it was. And this is even cheaper than having AEW Plus and then buying the pay-per-view at a discount. Like it all rounds out to be a better deal than what you're using on Triller right now. And then on top of that, you can subscribe for the year. You get a big discount, and you get the whole 9 yards for a yearly subscription. Hey, listen, $120 for all of AEW's pay-per-views, and the 4 Ring of Honor ones. If you really want to consider that like part of the value, as opposed to or more so as opposed to seeing it as an extra. I see it more as an extra. Like, it's not the meal. It's like, a side of fries. It's like, I'm paying for the meal. Oh, and I'm getting a side of fries. I want this burger, right? The burger is the main attraction. The burger is what I want, with all the trimmings on it and so on and so forth. Cooked the way I like, with the right ingredients in there, the right amount of condiments. Oh, and by the way, I also get fries. That's how I feel about Ring of Honor in this situation. And then it's a crazy deal. And you have to look at this, and you have to be telling yourself, AEW has been listening to fan reaction in regards to the main complaint from WWE fans that their product is the product is now overpriced. It costs too much money to go to the shows live. You even have, who was it? Was it Mark Shapiro? I think, right? We talked about it last time on stream last week. Mark Shapiro was talking about how tickets are, how the ESPN is overpriced. Might be pricing people out, and that's why not many people are subscribing. You gotta believe that AEW sort of has its ear to the ground, and they're like, yeah, okay. Well, we'll make something affordable, at least for the international markets, we'll make these things priced a little more elegantly so that people don't feel like they're getting gouged. That has to be part of the strategy at some point. Of course, it's not necessarily, it's not the case in the US or Canada, but the point still stands. The WWE goes to any other of these countries, right? Goes to the EU, goes to the UK, and everything is, the tickets are insanely priced. Now, what's motivating AEW into doing this? I think there's two reasons. Reason number one, Triller is shit. Not the service in and about itself. It works. You pay Triller the money. They'll deliver the pay-per-view. They'll fulfill it. They'll send you the pay-per-view and you can watch it live. I've never had any issues with Triller. The question with Triller has never been whether it's a technologically sound platform or not. I think it's always worked well for me. I've never had an issue with Triller. It's more of a question that, well, Triller is not in a good spot business-wise. We talked about this months ago, and it's still the case. Triller is not doing well and hasn't been doing well for a while. Its price stock is in the gutter, and the word going around is that Triller is not paying people. They're not paying the cut that they owe to the promoter who is putting their stuff up on Triller. They don't have money. That's why. Because they don't have money. So it's kind of crazy. So it's kind of crazy on that front. And look, let's take a look, like Triller stock price. Now look at this, 20 fucking cents USD. 20 cents. It went down to 16, little less than, just before 6 months ago, right? It was down to 16 cents. It's at 20 cents. This is preposterous stuff, folks. This is preposterous stuff. So it's not going well. And I think the writing's on the wall as it comes to Triller. It does seem very high to buy all that debt. I still think they're going to get picked up for pennies on the dollar. They're going to get picked up by someone for cheap. It's not, and it's going to continue. I think that it's going to, I don't know. Look, I don't know exactly how, but it's not just going to die away. I'm convinced there's some tape libraries, there's some assets there that people would like to pick up. So if anything, if it's not Triller itself that gets rescued, it's the content, right? That'll be something else. But that's for another discussion. But the point is that, AEW is probably just fed up of having to deal with these people internationally and not getting paid, which would lead me to believe that internationally, AEW has to be doing pretty well. If AEW is ready to invest in its own solution to reach out to the international markets all by themselves without having an intermediary, that would be, I think that's a sign that in general, they probably make a decent amount of money off of the international pay-per-view buys. That would be my guess. Of course, it's important for them to maintain a presence internationally as well. I think that's significant for them as well. And you look at the countries that they're launching in, and you're like, okay, all right, that's we'll make that happen. We'll go. We haven't been to the Philippines yet, or Pakistan, or Brazil, or South Africa. We haven't been to any of those places yet, but India. But maybe this is what we want to. This is what we want to crack into. Maybe there's enough of a taste. Anyway, that's the first reason, I think. The second reason is a little more speculative. Much more, not that the first one was an absolute assurance, but there's the Triller reason has legs to it. It's a lot more grounded. But when it comes to to my second reason, now we can be a little more speculative. Now we can wonder a little more as to whether or not this is AEW future proofing themselves from anything that'll happen once the sale of Warner Bros. Discovery happens. I mean, the sale is apparently done, but we were told that it was done with Netflix too, right? So we're not going down that road again. But when it finally becomes reality, when the ink has dried and the money has exchanged hands, once that happens and Warner Bros. Discovery exists for someone else, who knows what's going to happen with AEW? And I'm not the dooming kind when it comes to AEW's future. You guys and gals, non-binary pals, know this. I, au contraire, have an outlook of the media landscape is way too crazy for anyone to sit down and predict how things are going to go to begin with. And most importantly, AEW, even if they do get kicked off of Warner Bros. Discovery, they are going to be fine. They're going to find another home and they're going to be embraced in that new home. And AEW is going to continue delivering the product that they have with the same amount of money that they're going to be getting, because, it's a tremendously successful brand. No matter how many times you have people talking about how, this is the death of AEW, how many times Eric Bischoff keeps telling you that AEW is going to fail within the year and all of that. They're all doing the Monday Night Wars garbage. And if any of them had sense, if any of them had a brain in their heads, they just flat out say, look, they're the number 2 brand. They'll never be WWE. You can say that. But they're a successful brand. This is a successful wrestling promotion. We have not had a second national wrestling promotion to ever be successful this successful in decades. Okay? Decades. And they are successful. It is working out. It's not dying away. It is in a really good spot. So whatever happens with Warner Bros. Discovery, like I said, they're going to be fine. Now, if they want to, if Tony is like, look, I'm future-proofing myself, just in case, legitimately, like the worst case scenario happens and I get shut out of everything and nothing's working, I will at least still have this. I will have directed my fan base years ahead of time to start working on, subscribing, I should say, to this channel so that they know that myAEW.com with this subscription will give them access to everything they love about AEW, regardless of where we end up. Because if, in a couple of years, Tony ends up and he doesn't have his media deal set up, he's going to open up the valves on the US stuff here. That's all turned off on Brendan's table here. He's going to turn on the standalone pay-per-views and all the subscription models as well, all the tiers. Boom, boom, boom. He's going to turn them all on. They were turned on, by the way, earlier today. There was a very short window in which US citizens could have monthly subscriptions to myAEW.com, but that was pulled away very quickly because clearly that was a mistake. Because, I'm sure everyone understands, but we're just going to say it just to make sure everyone is on the same wavelength. They're not offering pay-per-views on myAEW.com because they have an exclusivity with HBO Max. And that's what, even though their pay-per-views are distributed on other platforms elsewhere, they're contractually obligated to only mention HBO Max. That's why. So I hope I'm just making sure we're all on the same wavelength here. I'm assuming you're all sitting there nodding and going, yes, Warren, we're not fucking morons. Okay, great. I didn't think you were a moron either. I'm just, just trying to be accommodating, just not taking for granted that you're all in my head here. So this is how I feel. This is how I feel about it, right? And I don't necessarily feel like it's a situation either where Tony Khan is being outwardly aggressive either towards Warner Bros. I don't think, like, you know, I've seen people say, oh, shots fired. I don't know. I don't believe that. I legitimately don't believe that it's a shots fired situation. Tony Khan has bent over backwards to maintain a strong, solid relationship with Warner Bros. Discovery. He's put over David Zaslav time and time again, how much of a great boss he is. And even before that, Tony's been very open about how great the relationship is with Warner Bros. Discovery. It's probably even impeded the high level nature of the relationship. I think it's even impeded on Tony finding a broadcast partner for Ring of Honor, because Tony has alluded time and time again that he's been looking for the right partner. He's been looking for the right place. And to me, that means that he's looking for someone within the Warner Bros. Discovery family, so that it doesn't cause any friction, so that they don't get upset because Tony's taking properties elsewhere. He wants to keep the relationship nice and smooth. Don't forget, Warner Bros. Discovery owns a little sliver of All Elite Wrestling. So why would you do this kind of stuff to upset someone who has a stake in your company? I don't think that it is a shots fired type of situation. I'm sure everyone is comfortable with what's happening. I'm pretty sure Tony Khan didn't just release this without talking about it first, without informing his business partners, in the media sphere, of what he was going to do. I'm sure everyone was like, okay, you can do this as long as you stick to the terms of our contract, where in the US, it's exclusive this, exclusive that, and for Canada and so on and so forth, right? As long as you stick with that, you can go play anywhere else you want. That's fine. And I think it's really that type of situation that's in place now. Why would Tony suddenly turn around and start being aggressive, or combative with Warner Bros. Discovery at this point, especially since he said recently that he's thrilled. He was thrilled that Paramount was going to pick up Warner Bros. Discovery. He's on the record. That's the word he used. So it doesn't quite that theory that he's doing it to take shots at Warner Bros. Doesn't quite jive with me. It could. Who knows? What happens in the tippy top penthouses of the tallest buildings in Chicago, wherever, Los Angeles. Who knows what kind of machinations that could be going down. But I really do think that it's more of a future-proofing situation, where he's more like, we're taking control of things. And he wants to create more content, and he wants to put more things out there. Like one of the things that they're promising is a podcast network on All Elite, on myAEW. He's putting together a podcast network. Of course, they're going to do the Will Washington, Aubrey Edwards one, right? They'll probably do Adam Cole and Evil Uno's gaming thing, right? Maybe they'll get a couple of others. Maybe they'll give me a call. Who knows? They want to create some original content for myAEW as well. Look, it's a very interesting move, and I think that the main reason that they did this is legitimately future-proofing. I think it also shows at the same time that they're having trouble landing international media deals. Because they've probably tried. They've probably reached out there to try and solidify some media deals, certainly in the UK. but they're not able to clamp anything down apparently. So this is one way of going about it. This is one way of doing it to get into these markets and have some kind of presence there. But I think first and foremost, I think the most logical answer, the most logical reason for this is just to no longer be dependent on Triller and get people to switch over, right? I think that's what it is. And then to basically, just substitute. It's like, hey, AEW fans, what are you doing still on Triller? Look at all the cool stuff you get from us. And then you get people moving over to subscribe to your thing. And then, you feel a little more confident and you're able to gauge things and you get data and all that stuff. We'll see how long this lasts. I don't want to sit here and doom and gloom and whatnot, but if the number one promotion in the world, armed with decades of archival footage, with pay-per-views that are legitimate household names, could not create and could not sustain its own streaming service, why do we think AEW is going to be able to pull it off? And no disrespect, right? I'm just wondering why. If WWE could not keep the WWE network with all of its resources, with the decades of content that it has, with the tape libraries of WCW, ECW, the territories, everything, and they could not keep the WWE network a thing. What makes us so sure that myEW.com is going to be able to succeed? It's a question I'm just putting out there. I don't have the answer because I don't have a crystal ball, because I'm not, future sight Warren. I haven't, I don't drive a DeLorean. I can't tell you. I don't know. But I can't help but ask myself the question. Scratch my chin. And honestly, I hope someone in media at some point, with one of the multiple media calls that Tony does, I hope someone asks him that question. I hope someone, and I don't even think it's an insulting question. I think it's a very legitimate question to ask. Look, WWE, with everything that they had at their access, with all the content that they produced, they could not sustain this. They could not make it sustainable. What makes you think you'll be able to do it? I'd love to hear that, because the fast channel is neat, but that's not going to pay the bills. That being said, didn't mention this at all, but the fast channel really fucking rocks. The fast channel is such a good idea, and I don't understand why we don't have access to it in Canada. Why do the Americans have access to the fast channel, but we don't? Why is that? But the fast channel is such a great idea, because a fast channel is just a passive way to make money. It is the most passive. If you have a content library, that's what you do. You just let it roll. People just watch it, and you squeeze in some ads in there, and it's fine. Everyone got real upset a few months ago when Warner Bros. Discovery decided to take all the Cartoon Network shows off of HBO Max. They were going, oh, they're erasing the storied history of animation at Warner Bros. And so on and so forth. But now they went and dropped them all on Tubi. All of the shows are there, like all the Looney Tunes, all the way to Dexter's Lab and the Powerpuff Girls, and it's all there. It's all on Tubi. Why? Because that's how it's a passive way to make money. People want to watch these old cartoons, and probably not as many people were watching them, but then you put them on Tubi, and whoever's watching is just generating money because of the ad space. That's a really fucking good move. I'm just very disappointed. I'm just very disappointed that we don't have the fast channel in Canada. Unrelated to all of this, I have a discount available for you for NordVPN. completely unrelated. I don't know why no, there's no relation to what we were talking about, but link is in the description below. You don't need a special offer code or nothing. You just click the link, head on over for 75% off your first few months of NordVPN. Just hit the link in the description below. Yeah, it's completely unrelated. Anyway, yeah, so that's it. Look, I welcome myAEW.com. I welcome it. I'm very excited to see what it's going to look like, and how it's going to develop. I'm, legitimately curious. I'm legitimately curious. The New Japan Cup. Okay, so I'm okay. I'm behind when it comes to the New Japan Cup. Okay, I am not entirely up to date here because life. Okay, I'm just not there yet. So I'm not necessarily going to break down the matches. I don't have much to say. I've watched one match in particular, which is what we're going to talk about. Watched one match in particular, and I'm pretty sure you already know which match I'm going to be talking about, and that is the Aaron Wolf Don Fale, aka Bad Luck Fale match that took place in the opening round of the New Japan Cup on the first night in Corkin Hall. This is all insane. And Aaron Wolf lost. He lost to the Bad Luck Fale. Took a dive for the Dawn, who is moving forward to the quarterfinals of the New Japan Cup 2026. Bad Luck Fale, ladies and gentlemen, in the year 2026 is moving forward in the New Japan Cup. I have I am a part of a couple of group chats with similarly minded individuals, groups in which I'm connected due to other connections that I have and whatnot. I've got a couple. And there's one of these group chats, which generally speaking, right, I'd say like 98% of the time, it's all, it's all very jokey and chill and quippy and people sharing stuff, and no one, it's usually a good vibe, a really good vibe. The only time this particular chat gets poisoned is when New Japan does nonsensical booking decisions like this one. And then it turns into a minefield. It's crazy. And it's a thing where I feel like everyone then breaks the situation down into such minutia that everyone sort of misses the larger point, which is having Aaron Wolf lose to Bad Luck Fale, Don Fale, in the first round of the New Japan Cup is a bad idea. I don't know why it's so hard to comprehend that that was a bad move. Now, I will do my best here. I will do my best to sort of play devil's advocate here and try to give a dual perspective in regards to the Aaron Wolf situation here that has developed, right? Look, the context that we need to make sure that we're all on the same level with is the following. Aaron Wolf was brought into New Japan Pro Wrestling last year. Big announcement, big deal, made mainstream headlines because Aaron Wolf, former judo gold medalist, is a household name in Japan. He is a guy that everyone knows. He's a mainstream commodity. He is the reason why some of the Wrestle Kingdom this year was broadcast on terrestrial television, right? Like on your antennas type of situation. It's been the first time that New Japan has been on broadcast TV in, I can't remember how many decades, but it's been a long time. And it's not because of some deft negotiations from the suits at Bushi Road that made that happen. No, it's because Aaron Wolf was there. That's how they were able to get on television. It's just that's just it. So he came in with a lot of expectations. He came in and he was training and he had his match with Evil at Wrestle Kingdom. And the consensus overall is for a first match from a guy who has never done this, he was pretty good. He looked good and he was pretty good. It was smartly booked. The guy knows how to sell. He was in the ring with an excellent opponent in Evil who just guided him through everything. It all came together really, really well. And his first outing, wins a championship, the Never title, and things seem to be off to the races because New Japan, whether you like it or not, is depending tremendously on this Aaron Wolf situation to work out. Why? Why are they depending on it, Warren? Don't they have because they don't have any stars. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tanahashi is gone. Naito's gone. Okada's gone. Ospreay's gone. They're all gone. All of the big heads, the big figures, they're all gone. It's not as if New Japan didn't have years before this to build up an army of young guys, already establishing them as the next crop of top guys to parry this type of situation where the stars who carried the company through its golden age of the 2010s are not around anymore. But no, they didn't do it. Instead, they always went back to the Tanahashi, Naito, well, specifically in the last few years, Okada, before he left and whatnot, but never making the young guys come across as the guys, as guys who could easily take the mantle moving forward. That's what they're doing now with Yota Tsuji specifically, because their backs are against the fucking wall, because they have to do it, because they got no other options. Why do you think they brought in Aaron Wolf? They brought in Aaron Wolf because he is immediately a recognizable figure in the company, in the country, I should say, not the company, but in the country. He can attract attention. He can get the attention that they really need to draw people into the buildings. So this guy has to work. He has to be exciting, and there has to be something there for people to get excited with. I feel since post Wrestle Kingdom, let's put it that way, I feel that post Wrestle Kingdom, Aaron Wolf has been horribly managed by New Japan. He has been terribly, terribly presented. He's hanging out with the geeks of New Japan, of the Hantai, right? He's hanging out with Master Wato. He's hanging out with just the nerds. The guys who sit at the, who aren't at the cool kids table anymore. He's hanging out with those guys. And he's feuding with the House of Torture, which is already a huge detriment. All people who just by their presence versus his are completely under him. Why isn't he hanging out with Yuya Uemura and Shota Umino? Why is he not hanging out with the champ? Why isn't he hanging out with Zack Sabre Jr.? Why isn't he hanging out with any of these cool people, these top tier wrestlers? Why is he scumming in at the bottom with the lower mid-carders? Why? And worse than that, wrestling House of Torture guys who no longer include Evil, who arguably I don't think it's even arguable, who was the best wrestler of the entire group. There's no one else who could carry a match like Evil did for the group. Who else in that group as a heavyweight can step into Evil's shoes and work with and work a good solid match with Aaron Wolf? I argue none of them. None of them can. Yujiro, Ren Narita, all of this is everything that they do in the House of Torture. It's just smoke and mirrors anyway. It's just a clown car of interference. That's all it is. It's never changed, and it will never change. Commentary can sit around and scream all day as much as they want whenever Show pulls out a wrench or Dick Togo does dick-to-dick contact. All of this bullshit. You know what I'm talking about? They can sit around and complain about that as much as they want. It never changes. It's always the same fucking thing. And it's practically insulting to your intelligence at this point. How little this has changed. In all the years this fucking group has been together, it's still the same. And now it's arguably worse because the masthead of the group, the guy who had the charisma, the guy who had the most in-ring talent amongst them all is gone. If there was ever a C team in the House of Torture, it's what it is right now. The A team is actually a C team. And somehow they think that this is what people want out of their hero, their gold medal hero, Aaron Wolf. They want him feuding with these dregs here because, they're the evil group. But we also want to see the guy. We also want to see the guy wrestle. We want to see the guy doing things. The argument is that if you keep this guy hot and you make him a killer, you make him someone who can run through this type of mediocre opposition, people will tune in. They'll be like, hell yeah, Aaron Wolf is just tearing ass. Isn't that kind of cool? That's not what we're getting. Now look, the attendance for the first two nights of the Cup, right? With Wolf announced on the card, 1,136 in Korakuen. Night 2 without 1,080. So it's not as if Aaron Wolf showing up to the building on his own is drawing the masses out of Korakuen. Like, this was not a standing room only Korakuen, and a difference of less than 100 separating both nights is not necessarily notable either. So you could argue here, people are not necessarily breaking down the doors to come see Aaron Wolf wrestle live. The numbers are basically flat. Now, you can absolutely argue, and I believe this is the cause here, his booking's been bad. It's been uninspired. I think they should have done something different with Aaron Wolf than this, just like I was talking about. And look, if you want to saddle him with the House of Torture, if you want to saddle him up with the House of Torture, go right ahead. But have Aaron Wolf run through the mall and with ease. Like, why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they making Aaron Wolf a big deal right now? It would be so easy. Just have him be this killer, this guy who will just tear through everyone and everything. You send the entire clown car after him, the entire House of Torture clown car, and he just hip tosses him all over the place. Judo throws left and right. That's all you really have to do. Because the working theory right now, when it comes to Aaron Wolf is that New Japan is terrified to have him do stuff because he's probably not any good, because he's probably not ready to go. That he still needs some time to cook, but they also need him out there. Well, my argument is this. I'm not expecting Aaron Wolf, who just started, to come out here and start wrestling 5-star matches every night he's on a tour. That's not my expectation. My expectation is that he's an attraction, that he's thrilling, that he's fun to watch. Why wouldn't he be? Again, a guy that he'd be a wall that people would run into. Why wouldn't he? An excellent booking situation right now is for him to have an undefeated streak. He wins the Never title. And if you want to have him work with the House of Torture to begin with, to establish like he's a badass and that he's way above these people, right? Which is also very important. Just have him run through them. 5-minute matches, 6-minute matches. I don't give a shit. As long as it's exciting, it's explosive, and Aaron Wolf then becomes something exciting, then someone that you want to see. And more importantly, establishes him above the House of Torture. Because now they're going the wrong way. They're flipping the script around. He started his debut fighting the House of Torture, fighting the guy of the House of Torture. Let's not forget. And he beat him. As time is progressing, Aaron Wolf is losing to the shit members of the group. He's losing to Ren Narita. He's losing to Don Fale. What does that tell me? You know what it tells me? It tells me that New Japan has no confidence in him, that he is not ready to have a singles match with anyone else, and and this is all we're going to do. That's what it tells me. He's going to have these goofy matches with the goofy group, and he's going to lose to them, which is insane. And I'm not surprised that people are not picking up tickets to come see Aaron Wolf versus Don Fale. Like, who gives a shit? First and foremost, who wants to see that? Nobody. And then he loses on top of that. You know, if you want to get conspiratorial for a second or two, you could be wondering, well, first of all, the question that you should be asking yourself is, what the fuck is going on in Gedo's mind? What is going on in this man's brain? This makes no sense. What is he thinking? This is a company. Look, and it's not as if AEW, that New Japan can do this, that they can't push a guy who is limited. This is the company that made Bob Sapp a star. They brought Bob Sapp in and made him into an attraction. And Aaron Wolf is umpteen times the athlete that Bob Sapp was. They're not going to pretend that they can't do it, that they've never done it. But look, if we wanted to get conspiratorial and wondering what the fuck Gedo is going around, right? What's going around in his head? Why is he doing this? Why is he taking this approach here? Could it be that he's just protecting guys backstage? He's protecting his talent, that maybe he sees Aaron Wolf coming in as some kind of threat to his guys, to his crew that he's been working with all these years. Do you think that's it? Do you think that maybe Gedo is maybe salty that the company spent so much money on Aaron Wolf? Maybe he's salty that they spent so much money on him that he's going to turn the little pet project against them. I don't know. These conspiracies. But you really have to wonder what's going on here. You really have to wonder what's going on in the booking of Aaron Wolf. It doesn't make any sense. Look, I heard today, and I think it was Joe Lanza who made this comparison, and it is very, very apt. Gedo is booking Aaron Wolf like Vince would book a wrestler who was getting themselves over, and Vince didn't want that. You know what I mean? Like Zack Ryder back in the day. So the guys building up organic. The guys would build up organic fan base, organic support. Vince would be against that. So then he'd start throwing him into matches where he'd be beaten by scrubs, by lower level people, just to kill the heat. He's done this. He's done this multiple times in the past. There's even times where he's tried to do it, and it failed. Like Bryan Danielson, like Becky Lynch. I think it's an apt comparison. It's kind of what it is. I think that the rational point of view here, and I really do think this is the rational point of view, regardless of how emotional one can be about it. And trust me, there are people who are really emotional about this. I think the rational way of approaching this is, or the rational take is that Aaron Wolf doesn't have any momentum right now. And he doesn't have any momentum because New Japan itself killed that momentum. This is a guy who entered Wrestle Kingdom as a top star, an Olympic killer, and a guy who represents exactly what Antonio Inoki like dreamt of. Like Aaron Wolf is an Antonio Inoki wet dream. A guy with legitimate credentials coming into the sport of kings, the sport that no one else could do or handle, like the greatest sport on earth. Pro wrestlers who can do anything. They're the toughest. They're the strongest. And you've got this guy coming in, and he's got the aura, and he comes in and he defeats Evil off the bat. First match, he's a world champion. He is a champion at the very least. Real momentum. Got a meaningful resolution to that story that he had been building with Evil. They're running it again. They're running it again with Narita, but Narita is a weaker antagonist than Evil, and the protagonist is a loser. It's not the same. Losing to Narita is a complete misstep, and losing to Bad Luck Fale makes it even worse. There's no one in 2026 who wants to see anyone wrestle Bad Luck Fale. No one wants to see Don Fale wrestle. No one wants to see anyone wrestle Don Fale. Like there's no excitement. There's no novelty to it. And what they're doing essentially at this point is the exact same House of Torture story that they have done with everyone else that has been involved in a House of Torture feud. It's the exact same fucking thing. So how does this turn out for Aaron Wolf? Well, it turns out that Aaron Wolf is just one of the guys. He's just another guy on the roster. There's nothing special about him, really. He's just another guy. And he's another guy who's limited, very limited. I mean, that, like I said earlier, that's the message that New Japan is sending out. This guy's not ready to wrestle alone. He's not ready. His game is full of holes, and we're going to try and protect it by having him lose to the House of Torture. You see how insane this logic is? It makes no sense. Now, in an environment like pro wrestling, in a pro wrestling locker room, I can pronounce things. In that type of environment, people are always working to hold on to their spot. So maybe Aaron Wolf is a victim of politicking backstage, of people that are just struggling real hard to hang on to their spots, that they're doing their goddamn best here. And maybe there's some of that going on too. But then again, you've got choices to make here. This guy came in, he is costing New Japan a pretty penny. They need this guy to work. And it's not that he's not working. We saw that people are into Aaron Wolf. He had the momentum, but New Japan is getting into its own way and keeping Aaron Wolf from getting the momentum that could carry him into being a star. That's where we're at right now. This loss, absolutely preposterous. It is terrible booking. Absolutely awful booking. And there's no two ways to go about it. And I'm not going to sit here and try to create a scenario in which, well, maybe down the line New Japan is going to... I am not going to fantasy book for New Japan or carry any water for any of these decisions. These are terrible decisions. Awful decisions. And if by the end of 2026, we're all doing our little recaps of the year and we're saying, wow, Aaron Wolf, what a bust, huh? Well, we will know where to point, who to blame, and it's not going to be necessarily Aaron Wolf. Paul Heyman, a lot of flaws. He's a very flawed gentleman. However, he was always right. He was always right in one thing, in the way that he approached booking professional wrestling. He was always right about one singular thing, one theory. And that is that in pro wrestling, you always accentuate the positives and hide the negatives. Right now, New Japan is not doing that. By not having Aaron Wolf wrestle, thinking that they're masking the negatives, they are in fact exposing the negatives, because people like me and a lot of fans out there as well, maybe even you, look at this and look at what they're doing and say, Aaron Wolf is not ready for prime time. He probably stinks. And that's the worst thing you could be doing. I think that's the worst thing you could be doing. Have him come in, have him do whatever limited arsenal he has. Just have him destroy dudes, especially the House of Torture. Who gives a shit? Have him defend his title over and over again. Get people into it. Because right now, there ain't a lot to get into. Oh, here's another really good point, by the way, that was kind of brought up in the chat, and I think it's important to point out. I had made a note of it, but clearly slipped my mind. It's a great point. You're having him wrestle Don Fale. You're having him wrestle Red Narita. You're having him wrestle fucking Yujiro. Who cares? Like whoever else in the House of Torture nonsense. You're having him tag team with Master Wato. And how is he, if he stinks, if he's not there yet, how the fuck is he going to learn if he's wrestling these doorknobs? If he's wrestling the likes of Yujiro, how the fuck is he going to learn? How the fuck is he going to improve? Put him in the ring with real goddamn wrestlers who will take him to the limit, will push him, and he will work within his parameters. Just go. But wrestling these schlubs in the House of Torture, doing House of Torture shtick, that's not going to help him. That's not going to have him improve. It seems like an A to B type of situation, but clearly we're not going to go from A to B directly. We're going to take the scenic route for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, a complete and utter mystery. I don't know what New Japan is up to. I really don't. I don't understand it. And New Japan is doing exactly the same thing as they did last year, where I felt last year in February was really, really excited and hopeful. And then for the rest of the year, everything just came apart. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this company anymore. I really don't. We're going to start talking about this report here. We're going to read this article off of the Figure 4 Online Wrestling Observer, where apparently the Road Dogg is no longer, I should say, gotta watch your words here, is no longer with World Wrestling Entertainment. God bless Joseph Courier for pulling up a picture of the Road Dogg, who at a period where he had seen better days, because he don't look like this no more. Body Slam reported today that Brian Road Dogg James. It's funny, everyone's crediting Body Slam, but wasn't it Pro Wrestling Insider that broke the news? I know. I'm not getting into these kinds of fights. It's, I don't care. I don't have a pony in this race, and these kinds of things can get real volatile, and I don't care enough. Not for who broke it first. That doesn't bother me. Anyway, they focused Warren. Body Slam reported today that Brian Road Dogg James has departed WWE. He had been the co-lead writer of SmackDown, working alongside John Swikata on the brand. PW Insider notes that the word going around, PW Insider notes, I wasn't completely out to lunch. PW Insider notes that the word going around is that James made the decision to leave his position with the company, and also added in a little rhyme. This was James' second stint on WWE Creative after a previous run that also included him being the head writer of SmackDown. James departed that role in 2019 and stayed with WWE in a behind-the-scenes capacity until being released in 2022. He was later brought back after Paul Triple H Levesque ascended to power with the company. I guess that's right, because in 2019 is the blow up that Road Dogg had with Vince. Wasn't it after the Brooklyn? It was after a Brooklyn show, not the Brooklyn show, a Brooklyn show, and Road Dogg had a blow up with Vince, which probably is not a good idea, considering Vince. During his first stint working as SmackDown's head writer, James was often a target of criticism from fans. AJ Styles defended James by saying that when Vince McMahon was with the company, James's ideas were so picked apart that they were not actually his ideas anymore. I mean, anyway, James is a member of the WWE Hall of Fame, having been inducted in 2019 as part of the Attitude Era faction. See, here's the thing. You can go out and say, oh, the ideas are all picked apart. Here's the thing. If you're in charge, the buck begins and stops with you. So if everything sucks, and it's on you. If everything is great, that is also on you, right? Just Paul Levesque is the living example of that, of a guy who can't stand that the buck stops with him, because he's there when everything is great, shows up, and he gets the adulation that he feels he deserves. But then when people start turning on him and people are a little more upset at him, well, then, he doesn't dare show his face in front of a crowd and does his post-match little interludes backstage with a mic stand to make sure that to make sure that his fifis don't get hurt again, right? But back to Road Dogg. Why am I making this about Paul Levesque? It doesn't always have to be about Paul Levesque, but that's the point. Like, even if AJ Styles wants to go out and say, well, his ideas are always like, torn to shreds and whatnot. It's like, well, he's still the guy in charge. And if the product is not good, well, and his ideas get torn apart and picked apart into something that is not what he wanted, I might think he's bad at his job then. He doesn't act like a guy in charge. Now, I understand that he had to deal with Vince McMahon, who, basically never listened to anyone and would always do what he pleased. But that's not special with Road Dogg. It's not it was never a Road Dogg problem. Everyone went through that process with Vince. He wasn't special. He wasn't a teensy weensy little snowflake, that was just like, oh, poor little guy. Vince is being so mean. Poor little roadie. Oh no. Poor little roadie. No, who cares? Vince does that to everyone. You're the guy who's in charge. The product, the creative of the product sucks. The buck stops with you. It's just as simple as that. So again, he's in this position once again where the creative the creative sucked and was no good. You know, people were revolting against SmackDown. I kept hearing week after week from people who actually tuned in to listen to it, that it was just an untenable show. Like, it was just so incredibly bad. So he took a lot of shit, and if the show's not good and you're the head writer, well, yeah, then you take the hit. You take the hit. That's just how it goes. And I mean, I think this is his fourth, I believe this is Road Dogg's fourth departure from WWE. I think. If I remember correctly, he left with Jeff Jarrett in the mid 90s, right? Like in 95, something like that. Jeff Jarrett walked and he left with him. He returned, of course, shortly thereafter, and then left again like in 2002, something like that, 2001, 2002, when he was having substance abuse issues. You know, kicked him to the curb, which is a classy thing to do. Then he comes back in the position that we just talked about, then became head of creative, then had his falling out with Vince, then was fired in the mass layoffs of, that just littered the pandemic era. And then when Triple H got back in charge, he brought him back because the world needs a Road Dogg. So good for him. So like in a couple of years, he'll come back for his fifth. He'll come back for his fifth tour of WWE. Yeah. I mean, he took the hit, right? He got tossed out because the creative's not great, right? But if you ask me, there's a reason why he got fired. There's a reason why he took a hit here in an environment where even WWE fans are saying, "Oh, the creative's not great," right? And do you know why he was fired?
It's time to play the game. Time to play the game.
Because that's why. Because he was there as a shield for his boy, Paul Levesque. That's just as simple as that. You're not gonna criticize Paul. Paul has all these underlings, right? Exactly. The scape dog. I fucking love it, Travis. That's a good one. That's exactly what he is, though. When I was talking about the buck stopping with the leader, right? With the guy in charge. Well, Triple H is the guy in charge. Okay, he has the advantage of being much higher up. So, and he has a team to which he delegates stuff underneath. So the rest of the team, he can move pieces around as much as he wants. He can just move the whole checkerboard, get people in and out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's really, he'll be the last guy fired. But this is a move, in my opinion, to calm things down, to show fans that, look, we're getting rid of the problems in creative. We've heard you. You don't like SmackDown. Well, Road Dogg was in charge of SmackDown, so he's gone now, and no one will have the foresight to take a step back and look at the picture and say, hey, you know what? The problem is Paul Levesque. The problem in creative is Triple H. It's not his underlings. His underlings are there to take the hits because once again, instead of the buck stopping with Paul, he's going to pass the buck to these other people. Are you telling me, honest to God, and I want us to be very, 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 very honest with each other. Are you telling me that Road Dogg was doing all of this creative for SmackDown and Paul Levesque had no say in it, that he didn't give any approvals, didn't thumbs up anything, didn't rubber stamp anything, nothing? Is this what you're telling me? Are you telling me that all the issues with SmackDown are going to be fixed with this guy leaving? Press X. This Triple H guy, I tell you. I'm telling you. Can't stand him. I look, okay, coming back to the least talented of the Armstrongs here. There's been a lot of memeing and jokes going around, well, now that he's free, he can go back, he can come join Billy Gunn in AEW and do a revival of the New Age Outlaws or VKM or whatever they want, or they could go to TNA and do that. Or he could go to TNA and be a part of the creative over there with fucking Tommy Dreamer and Delirious. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of shit that makes a lot of sense here. Look, this is a guy who's going to sit around and wait for the phone call. He's going to wait around for the phone call. He's probably even actually talked to Conrad Thompson at this point. And we're going to be gifted with another AEW Sucks, podcast that's going to be very MAGA coded because it's the Road Dogg Jesse James, and that's likely what's going to happen until Triple H calls him back. That's essentially it. Until Triple H calls him back, he's going to do his little podcast, and people say, he could show up on something. There's no. Have you seen the shape that this guy is in? Did you not see the Unreal thing? Right? Did you not see that? Even if you didn't watch the show, you must have seen some clips. That guy is in no shape to be wrestling. No shape. It makes the clip from the Unreal show, the R-Truth stuff, right? It makes it real funny when you realize that when you realize that the stuff that he was saying about truth, about breaks my heart, but at his age, you're not going to get the rewards that you were required for, You're not going to get what you were expecting at the age you are. Talking and acting like he's a fucking Tim Robinson commercial character. Excuse me. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? And now, suddenly talking all high and mighty like he's untouchable. I keep telling everyone, there's no one in WWE now who is untouchable. Everyone thinks like Triple H is immune. They don't think that he could probably be bounced at any given moment because he's been there for years under the protection of Vince, who himself could never be bounced, and Vince never really got rid of him. Even when Triple H lost the Wednesday Night Wars with NXT versus Dynamite, and they had to move NXT, and then Triple H got demoted. He just got demoted. He never got kicked out. He never got removed because, Vince. Now Vince isn't there anymore. And these TKO guys, brother, these are sharks. And don't never forget that right now they are scrambling to get more tickets sold for WrestleMania, which is already doing insane business, which is already, what do they have? Like 36,000, 37,000 tickets per night, which is insane business. It's on track to be the most successful, to have the biggest gate of any professional wrestling show in North America ever. It's already on track for that. And despite that, they're still upset that they're not getting the tickets they want. That the tickets aren't selling as quickly as they wanted. They're still upset about that. So these guys are sharks. Do you think that if things really start to nosedive, TKO won't even blink and say, hey, we're going to change creative. Thank you for all. Thank you, Paul. Future endeavors, etc., etc. You don't think there's guys right now set up there in WWE, hanging around creative that wouldn't want to give, that would give their left nut to be in charge of creative of the company? I can name 3, and who knows who else. I keep telling you over and over again. That's why Triple H makes sure that everyone understands that this is his show, because he knows he's on an ejector seat. He knows. He understands this. The board of TKO at some point could just turn around and say, hey, listen, you guys got to do some changes at the top over there in World Wrestling Entertainment. This, it ain't working out. Then Mark Shapiro calls Nick Khan and is like, well, you got to figure some shit out here, Nick. And you can't just, you can't start firing, Michael Hayes or Will Regal. You're going to have to get rid of some, you got to get rid of some heads here. Heads got to roll. So Triple H understands this. That's why he's making the show all about him. So that in the mind of the average dopey WWE wrestling fan, they can't disassociate the two. They can't disassociate the WWE from Triple H. He understands how this goes. Why am I talking about Triple H again? Brian James, right now, the roadie, he's gonna go home. He's gonna take it easy, and he's gonna start a podcast. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised in the least if he showed up in TNA. And showed up as in, I'm going to come here to help out with creative. And that would just be absolutely tremendous. But he's going to wait around for the call. He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. And I know a lot of people have been saying, please, Tony, don't. There's no way he's going to work for AEW. There's no way. No way. That's what happened to him, right? That's what happened to our boy Road Dogg. But in the meantime, there's some more creative shakeups that happened there, where Alexandra Williams, I don't know why I stuttered. Alexandra Williams on her LinkedIn account today announced that she had been promoted to a vice president role in addition to being the lead writer of WWE Raw. She was already a senior writer and producer. So she went and announced that. The news comes on the same day as a report that longtime WWE creative team member and former wrestling star Brian Road Dogg James has made a decision to leave the company. Williams has been with WWE since October 2020, starting as a writer and producer for Raw, getting a promotion to senior writer and producer in February 2024. She comes from the film industry, having graduated from UNLV. Who wrote this? Josh, is that you, Josh? Josh Nason. Josh, if you're listening to this, tell me, honestly, you're just writing out her LinkedIn page, aren't you? You went to check her LinkedIn, and then you're just, oh, this is what she did, and then you're just writing down the shit, right? Josh. She comes from the film industry, having graduated from UNLV with a BA in theater, TV, and film. Look, I'm joking. I'm busting Josh's balls here, but to be honest, I would not go check her link. I would not go check her LinkedIn. We've got all the information right here. Why would I go check? According to her LinkedIn, see, she worked as a development coordinator for 2 separate companies for a combined 5 years. In addition to some freelance work, she's also a member of SAG-AFTRA as an actor. Aren't we all, though? From her new job description, I'm not a member of SAG-AFTRA, but there's a union here in the province of Quebec that I am a member of, an actors union, because I used to act. I used to do improv stuff, and when you wanted to do gigs, well, you had to have the good gigs. You wanted to do the good gigs, you had to be unionized. You had to be a part of the union. So, as VP, and why am I sharing this? Why am I talking about this? As a VP and lead writer for WWE's flagship live program, I oversee all creative development for Monday Night Raw, one of television's longest running and highest rated weekly shows. I pitch to and collaborate with executive leadership in a cross-functional writing team to conceptualize and execute week-to-week storylines, character arcs, and premium live event buildups, including WrestleMania and Survivor Series. I help drive the full creative process from episode rundowns to long-form narrative strategy, developing complex characters and compelling feuds that deepen audience engagement across live broadcasts, digital platforms, and social media. My work is informed by an analytical approach, tracking segment performance, audience trends, and viewership data to make real-time and long-term programming decisions. In partnership with talent producers and brand leadership, I've contributed to record-setting live event attendance and revenue growth, helping position Raw as the cornerstone of WWE's content ecosystem under the TKO umbrella. Now, I just want to point out something here. One of the things that I often as well bring up here on the show is I talk about corporate creativity, right? Boardroom creativity specifically. You didn't have to. I'm glad this bit it came out, because this pretty much confirms everything that I've been telling you when I talk about WWE being boardroom creative, being a bunch of suits sitting around making decisions on what creative directions the show should go. It's nothing about feeling, right? It's nothing about creating emotional attachment. It's nothing about creating a true narrative, right? A deep, attractive story, right? One that will pull at your heartstrings, make you really feel compelled. No, look what we're talking about here. We're talking about deepening audience engagement. We're not talking about creating something meaningful, creating art. Of course, it's pro wrestling. It's not, but what we're talking about is engagement, working week to week with executive leadership. Why is the boardroom involved in the week to week creative of a show? That doesn't work in television. That's not how it works. You don't have execs being boots on the ground working week to week. They leave that to the creatives, right? Analytical data. So she says it herself, right? She says, my work is informed by an analytical approach, meaning numbers, analytics, looking at the raw data and saying, oh, this is what worked, this is what didn't work. Look, we did, tracking segment performance, audience trends. It's all number based. It's boardroom creative, folks. This is creative. This is creative conceived out of numbers and measurable cold data as opposed to anything with feeling. Yeah, exactly. It's fancy pattern recognizing. That's exactly what it is. They do it in the music industry too. They do it with the music industry too. They break it down. Now they have really sophisticated tools to be able to break down, well, why are all, you take the within the last month, you take the top 10 tracks and you break them down to their essence and why did they work? Well, this is the beats per minute. These songs have an average of so much beats per minute. The tempo is this, the voice is that on this range, and so on and so forth. And here's the meter of the lyrics, so that this is where everything works. Like everything is sort of pulled together. There's no that's not creativity. That's not creativity. Those are numbers. These are spreadsheets. It's analytics. It's cold. You can't create out of analytics. You're not creating, you're pandering. You're just making slop. You're just looking at stuff and saying, well, people, they really like, if you look at your charts and hey, people really like bananas. We should really put bananas on TV. I should make a show all about bananas. Well, then there you go. That's not how it works. Well, I mean, it is how it works, but it's not how you make something really compelling. So that's why, this is why WWE is all sizzle and no substance. There's no soul in this. There's no soul looking at numbers and patterns and basing your entire creative off of segment performance and tracking audience trends and stuff like that. That's why for people like me, even before, we get these insights in here, it all explains why WWE comes across as artificial, comes across as phony, as plastic, as a homunculus of pro wrestling, because it's something that pretends to be pro wrestling and caters to audience trends as opposed to an audience, and it's not the same. It's really not the same. And you wonder why fans fall back on business metrics to justify the promotion. I mean, that's all they have. That's when you have nothing else, when you've got nothing else, that's all you really can do. Oh, all right. The live attendances for WWE are huge. They're making huge gates. AEW could never. Okay. But your show still stinks. Anyway, shakeups in the creative and making them so public and on the road to WrestleMania. Here's how we're going to conclude this thought here. All of this, right? All of these changes here. Road Dogg, Alexandra fucking Williams, right? Alexandra Williams. All of these changes that they're doing pre-WrestleMania these are signals to show that to try and recreate confidence in the fan base. I think WWE right now is seeing that the fans are annoyed, they're fed up, they don't see anything really interesting, that they were sort of, 2025 was not a great year and they're looking for things to improve, but they don't see it. They're all seeing the same patterns as they did last year and they're not enjoying it. So Triple H TKO comes out and says, look, we're getting rid of this one guy you don't like and this other girl here who's been really good. We're promoting her. We're making her even more important because she's good, right? I guess, sure. So it's all to create an illusion that everything is okay and that we're listening, that we're taking steps to change things. Where have I heard this before? WWE coming out, taking accountability. Things are going to change. We know things have been rocky. We're going to listen to the fans. We listen to the fans. Where have I heard this before? It's almost as if this is an old Vince ploy right here. Almost as if. And everyone who thought that Triple H was going to be so different from Vince. So how about we review a CMLL show? Why don't we review the most recent Friday night show, which just happened to be the special all-women's show, La Noche de la Amazonas. There you go. There's my Spanish for you. That happened on March 6, 2026, of course, from Arena, Mexico, over there in the city that is known as Mexico City. All-women's show. So, all the referees, all the ring announcers, all the commentators, top to bottom, all women, and of course, in the ring as well. The action in about itself was all female talent. I don't have a number as of yet to see just how many people showed up at Arena Mexico for this event. I would be surprised if they tried to call this a packed show. I don't think this was sold out. There were some notable empty seats when they would occasionally pan into the audience, but I don't think it was a disaster either. I don't think it's something where it's like, 5,000 fans showed up, where you usually get like between 14 to 16,000 people on any given Friday night. So I don't think it's a complete disaster. I'm not quite sure it's a sellout is the point that I'm trying to make, but we'll see how it turns out when we do get the numbers. And overall, look, I thought this was overall a good show. It had a little bit of everything. Had one excellent match that I thought was particularly great on the show. Had a lot of good stuff as well. But at the same time, there was a couple of things that had me, sort of shrugging, going, hopefully things will get better. But we'll get to it as we start getting into the nitty gritty. And why don't we? Why don't we get into the nitty gritty? And I think we'll start with the main event. I think which was the main attraction, the definitely the match that captivated the attention of most non-CMLL watchers or regular watchers, which was the CMLL Women's World Title match, in which Persephone defeated Mercedes Moné to become champion. And this was a very good match. I thought this was extremely interesting. And and here's the thing: Persephone is a wrestler who exceeds at being a heel or a Ruda in this case. That's what she excels in. That's the style she prefers to work as. In this circumstance here, with Mercedes Moné being the top outsider and so on and so forth, her being a heel no matter where she goes, and especially in this environment here where Mercedes is to a degree the invader, the person who came in, stole the title and left with it. Persephone is absolutely in the position where she had to be the Technica, and at the start of the show they even did an in-ring segment with Persephone. And she was basically saying, I'm going to win the title here. I'm going to bring it home. She's not there. She's not on the bad side of things. She's not misaligned on this one. She has to be the Technica, but she is a wrestler that prefers to wrestle a little more like Mercedes has a tendency to do. So I think this is something that has a tendency to affect Persephone's in-ring performances when she doesn't have the opportunity to really work as a heel, if I can use the gringo vernacular here. There's I think it's something that can be pointed to in her match against Athena in Ring of Honor a couple of months ago, in which I thought that since again she has to play the babyface to Athena's persistent heel, I don't think she's fully comfortable in that role. One would argue that a well-rounded pro wrestler would be able to switch between roles, should be able to be a heel when necessary and a babyface when necessary, and to a degree, I'm okay with that. I agree with the sentiment, but then also there's the other thing about accentuating positives, right? Which is always should kind of take precedence. Now I understand they had there was no other way to book Persephone in this situation here. I'll be curious to see how she acts moving forward when she's out, now that she doesn't have to play the good guy to Mercedes bad guy. I'll be curious to see how that develops, but I think it's definitely, I think her alignment, how she performs in front of the crowd and whatnot, I think, and how it affects her in ring, I think she has much more heel / Rudo affinities than she does explosive babyface comebacks, right? Which she did get in this match, though. We do have to point this out, where the match essentially was Mercedes being in control. You could see early on that, there's a very fair chance that Persephone was winning. Look, regardless, even before we got to the match itself, we know what's going on with Mercedes right now. She is losing her titles, and she's going around, she's losing her titles. Look, she's recently been booked to go wrestle in, Winnipeg Pro Wrestling, WPW, isn't that what it's called? The Winnipeg promotion from which she won the title a few months ago. Well, she's going back, and she's not going back. She's going back to drop it. I hope everyone is already aware of that. And this was absolutely the case here for this match here, where where she was absolutely dropping the title to Persephone. She's had her defenses. I think this was her fourth defense, or would have been her fourth defense. No, she did defend it. She unsuccessfully defended it. So it's a fourth defense. Look, Jesus Christ. I'm not going to get into the semantics. This, Warren, wrangle your brain here. We don't have to go off down here. You, especially since you said, "Hey, how about a quick review?" Why do I even try? Why do I try? Why do I try to establish these parameters for myself where I'm like, no, we're going to do a nice, quick, little, tidy review. We don't have to spend time going off on tangents and rambling. Look, here we are. So to circle back here, I think it was pretty much a given that Persephone was going to win. And that's fine. And I think look, Mercedes, this is where she's at right now. She has to get rid of the title. She's just not gonna. The belt collector thing is going to be done. I think that's fine. We're going to move on to something else. But in the meantime, Persephone then gets a big win, and it came across as a big win in Arena Mexico, and that's a huge deal, right? Because like I mentioned, Mercedes did come back to defend the title in Arena Mexico a couple of times, and she's a heel. She was, she's perceived as an outsider and so on and so forth. So for Persephone to come in, get the title off of the invader, but then at the same time, establish herself as the top woman in the division because she won the title, and she won the title off of, this international superstar. I think it's significant for Persephone and her perception in CMLL. I think this has done tremendous. This will do tremendous stuff for her perception moving forward. So, but look, this was really good. If we go back to talk about the match, like I mentioned, it's a classic heel setup where the heel is in control for the vast majority of the match, setting up hope spots and for the babyface, and Mercedes is working the arm mostly in this match as well. She does some backstabber into the statement maker. She's playing some of the hits. Persephone, when she's locked into that, she powers out with a power bomb, which was tremendous, and meteoras are flying right and left by Mercedes Moné. Get yourself someone who loves you as much as Mercedes Moné loves the meteoras, I guess. Acai moonsault by Persephone onto the floor, but Mercedes dodges. She avoids it and instead lands a meteora off the apron. The match was very close, and then there's this one moment as well that I really liked. Persephone's mother threw water at Mercedes. I don't know. It looked completely organic because you would have assumed that Mercedes would have come in real close, like to talk to her, like how you do it, right? They go up to the barricade and then the mom would have thrown the water, but she was far away from the barricade and she had been talking shit to someone in the audience for a significant portion of the match, right? She had been for a significant portion, for a few times in the match, she would always talk shit and do crotch chops, and stuff like that in the same direction of in Arena Mexico, only to realize that it's Persephone's mother who is at ringside. So Mercedes is talking shit to the mother, and then while Mercedes is on the floor after the meteora, if I'm not mistaken, she flings a cup of water at Mercedes. It's like, all right, let's go, let's rule. This rules, let's do it. Crossing my fingers that Persephone's mom doesn't get expelled by Arena Mexico security. I don't think she did, and she was still around. She was still around to berate her, but she was really into it. Persephone's mom was really, really into it. I don't know if her mom's been smartened up to what's going on. But she was fierce. She was talking mad shit to Mercedes even when she was eating shit and whatnot. I was okay. That's fine. Like, it made me question how much does she know that this is kind of fixed. So look, it was good, and there's another spot where we get a really close 2.99999 count by Ref Aubrey once everything is back into the ring. I think it's after the Razor's Edge. Ref Aubrey counts a very close 2.9, and the crowd just goes nuts. They start booing. The crowd was into this. They were the live audience was really, really into it. They were truly enjoying themselves. And it's a springboard splash that gets the win for Persephone and locks it up and gets to walk home with the title La Cintura around her waist. Like I said, I liked the match enough. It was a little sloppy. There were some sloppy moments from both in this match. At some point, Mercedes tries to do the flip into the turnbuckles, right? I don't know if it's a sunset flip or if it's or like a code red, but she it doesn't work out. It looks terrible. Persephone flubs a couple of things, including her Razor's Edge that was supposed to be the lead up to the finish. She flubs that and she picks up Mercedes and does it again. I mean, she's getting big reactions from the crowd when she's doing it. I mean, look, but I felt it was just sloppy enough, and especially in very specific moments of this match, very important moments in this match where I was like, you know what? It's taking some of the luster away. Like, I can absolutely deal with matches sometimes that don't feel polished, that feel a little rough, that look a little sloppy, but there's a difference between something having that vibe, having that feel, and then adding to the match, as opposed to things actually not working out and not connecting and making everything kind of look bad in the process, and slowing down the match. That I have more of an issue with. And it wasn't a botch fest, but it did hamper my enjoyment of it. Look, I'm looking at it on Cage Match right now as I'm recording this on Sunday. The inmates give this match an 8.89. There's 111 people who voted, and we're getting an 8.89. I think that's extremely high. I'd give it around a 3.5, maybe a 3 3/4 if I were in a good mood. I don't know, man. Does that say what kind of mood I'm in? No, it's more like, I don't know, like I'm very ambivalent between the two, because I thought the match was very good, but like I said, I feel like the spots being blown and Persephone's awkwardness at working as a technica, it's sort of, I don't know, it hampered a little bit. I don't think we were using her to her top strengths, which, look, it happens, right? It's the kind of thing you just have to deal with. It was good, but it wasn't great. I'll stick with 3.5 stars. Now I've talked myself into it. 3.5 stars for the main event. If we keep going, down the card, then if we keep working our way backwards, is how I should say. La Chicas Indomables, as opposed to Ingobernables, it's not the same. La Jarochita and Lluvia defeated the Stardom duo from Neo Genesis, Starlight Kid and May Sarah. And this match over-delivered. I was kind of surprised at how much I enjoyed this match. I thought that this was... I legitimately thought that this was going to be a match where Lluvia in particular was going to be completely exposed. and just be like, no, you know what? Because she's not very good. And now we're getting into the ring. She's not wrestling other CMLL luchadoras. She's getting into the ring with, two great Stardom talents. One in particular, Starlight Kid, one, who is a top tier pro wrestler in the world. She's just an absolutely phenomenal pro wrestler. So I'm thinking when I see the match announced, I'm like, oh man, okay. La Jarochita has, I think she'll be able to work through it, but Lluvia, I have no idea. And well, it turns out the best way to not expose Lluvia is to not have her wrestle too much during the match, or at least eat a lot of offense, because her own offense was very, very simple. She did some dives, some drop kicks. She wasn't doing anything above her pay grade. Whereas Starlight Kid and May Sarah, I mean, they're so fucking solid. They're, of course, and they're commanding the ring. They're always in the right spot. They're doing, they're keeping the flow alive. They're just one place to another. Just incredible stuff. And La Jarochita did work out quite well. It's almost as if it's almost as if she thrives when wrestling really good wrestlers. It's almost as if iron sharpens iron, to use that tired cliche. But nonetheless, I thought this match over delivered. Am I sitting here telling you it was great and an absolute must see? No, not necessarily. But if you're deciding to sit down and watch the entire card on from top to bottom, this is going to be a nice little distraction, a good little match between the main event and Megan Bayne versus Olympia, which we'll get to in a quick second. Look, they're flying all over the place. They're doing the dives. They're doing all sorts of great offense. I think the Stardom girls look great. They played a little rudo here. You got a little bit of Dark Starlight Kid coming back here in this one. Not full-fledged, not full on, but you did get your heel tactics as things were moving forward. And La Jarochita ends the match with a top rope cutter. That's it. Solid work, well done, well paced. Again, nothing that'll blow your mind. If you watch Stardom, if you're a Joshi fan, you have seen tag matches in Stardom like this one, but maybe even better. In fact, I know better. But this was not the Clash of Styles disaster that I thought it would be, and I'm actually kind of impressed at how good La Jarochita was in this match. 3.25 stars is how I'd rate it. I thought it was good. I thought it was very good. Well, good. Don't go overboard, Warren. It was good. I thought it was good. Megan Bayne defeats Olympia in the match of the night. This was awesome. This legitimately was a great match. Because what you have is exactly as you envisioned it. Two power-based wrestlers, two big gals going at it, laying into each other, doing power moves, and then occasionally doing a dive and doing a flip, and you're like, holy shit, they shouldn't be doing this, but here we are, type of thing. This was excellent. This worked so well that I kind of want them to go at it again. I'm kind of looking for Megan Bayne Olympia 2 1-on-1. Now, this was supposed to be some kind of tag setup here. I think it was originally supposed to be Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford versus Olympia and Zeuxis, I think. But now Ford apparently is injured again, and that, I feel bad for her, but I feel bad for Penelope Ford, but I don't feel bad for us, the wrestling viewer, who ended up just getting a one-on-one with Megan Bayne and Olympia, and it was tremendous. I thought Bayne controlled the ring. She looked great. She looked great throughout. I think everything she did was spot on. And Olympia, I believe from everything that I've seen from her, I think this is her best match ever. I legitimately think this is the best match she's ever had. Be willing to take any counter indications here into consideration, and maybe go watch any other Olympia matches that you may have seen that you're like, yeah, this one here was so much better. But she was great here. She was great, and she's just as much as she's eating offense sack of shits and whatnot, she's grabbing Megan Bayne on her shoulders, then walking over to the audience and just dumping her over the rail into the crowd. And I'm like, fuck yeah. This, this rules. They're just doing all sorts of stuff. And then they're landing Liger bombs on each other. Olympia lands one early on, and she does this. Does a great gorilla press slam where she looked absolutely bestial, lifting Megan Bayne at the her arms completely extended up. It was just fantastic. They're trading German suplexes at some point in the ring against each other. Megan Bayne hits a spear, running Liger bomb, and that gets the job done. Big, hard-hitting match. I want more of I want more of these two. I want a rematch. I want them to push themselves even further next time. I either in Arena Mexico or have Olympia come on over to AEW one night. I want to see more. I'm left wanting more. That is typically a good sign that you've seen a really, really great match. I give this 4 stars. I think this was the best match of the show. I really do believe this was the best match of the show. And I wouldn't say by far, but assertively the best match on the show. I believe. I don't think there's anything that had this level of work. Good stuff. Mina Shirakawa defeated Zeuxis. This is another match that I enjoyed more than I thought. Maybe not as much as the World Tag Team title match, the Women's World Tag Team title match. But I enjoyed this more than I thought. I don't know. I feel like recently I'm coming in with very minimal expectations regarding Mina Shirakawa matches because I think she's extremely uneven, and most of the time she's not great. So when she does have these solid matches, I'm like impressed. I'm like, oh wow, I need to rectify my positions moving forward, type of thing. And I get excited then because I'm like, oh good. I mean, I don't want to sit here and have to always say, yeah, I was right again. This wrestler sucks. I kind of want to be surprised. I want to be impressed on how wrestlers evolve and change and prove me wrong. And Zeuxis is a fine worker. Nothing that that would blow your mind, but she's a much better worker than a lot of the luchadoras that work in CMLL. So I think it was and I also think she's overall a better worker than Mina. So I didn't know what to expect out of this match. It was better than I thought, but my bar was pretty low because Mina in this match again does some really cool things. They use Ref Aubrey so that Mina can do a tornillo like off of the referee, which was cool. Where you're like, oh wow, that's really nice. But then she goes and does a top rope sling blade, and she completely blows it. Like, how many times? Like, the sling blade is supposed to be a cornerstone of her offense. It doesn't make sense that she's blowing them so much. And they went and fought on the entrance, on the ramp, and that was pretty cool. And it wasn't a terrible match, but I think it was. I don't think it was all that great either. I'm gonna give it like a flat 3. I enjoyed it enough. I'm not gonna sit here and try to overhype it, but I'm not going to bury it either. I don't think it's in that circumstance. Good enough, sloppy at times, but that's the default I have, and I think you should have, when it comes to Mina Shirakawa matches. Then we had a 3-way match for the Copa Irma Gonzalez, the Irma Gonzalez Cup, where La Magnifica defeated Marcela and Princesa Sugihit. I never know how to pronounce that, so we're just going to leave it at that. And we're going to call her Princesa moving forward. This is the cup honoring Irma Gonzalez. She was actually there, which was pretty cool and was probably the coolest thing of this entire thing. I've got no notes. My eyes glazed over at some point. I was watching people pull moves. 2.5 stars. I don't know what to tell you. I understand what they're doing, and these are all like, the people involved in this match, they're all veteran luchadoras who have been doing this for years. I think La Magnifica is the youngest of the 3. She's like mid-30s. I think Princesa is she's in her 40s for sure, and Marcella's in her 50s. So I understand what they're doing. It's sort of the whole principle behind it, but it turns out it's just a match where you're like, your eyes glaze over. They're doing things. It's kind of half speed. The stuff that's landing isn't great, and they're all waiting around for stuff to happen so that they can come in and do their move. There's no flow. It is what it is, though. Look, we'll just give it a 2.5 stars and we'll move on. I don't think there's not much to add there. Sanelli and La Catalina defeated Gara Negra and Kira. Or is it Kira? Because there is a Kira, K-I-R-A. That's not her. What we have here is K-E-Y-A-R-A, who, if I'm not mistaken, are two folks that don't typically work. Well, I mean, don't typically work Arena Mexico, that's for sure. But also, like, just don't work CMLL, period. I think this might have been a tryout, a debut. These are new wrestlers to CMLL viewers, even though both have been around for a while now. And I got to tell you, I thought Gara Negra was a standout in this match. I thought she was extremely good. She had a really good exchange at some point. I believe it was it with La Catalina? Look, I don't remember with who exactly, but she had like this exchange where she's twisting in and out of submissions and locks, and I thought her work was snappy, had bite to it. You know what I mean? And it's something that a lot of the luchadoras and CMLL are lacking in. If they want to bring her on and they want to give her a little room to grow and show up on these big shows, or even the Saturday night shows and so on, I think she could be a legitimately great addition to the women's division. Kara was good as well. We'll call her Kara because we're going to be talking about Kira in a bit. Kara was very good as well. You can tell. They're not the same luchadoras and that we see in CMLL. They're not trained the same way. You can tell they come from different backgrounds, and it's, dare I say, a little refreshing. It's a little refreshing. I mean, look, this Kara, she's been at this since 2010. So you would assume that she knows what she's doing. Gara Negra she's been at this for about 10 years. So, like there's a good amount of experience. These people are not rookies, but you feel like there's a good backbone there. And I think what they brought to the table is very lacking in CMLL right now as far as the women's division goes. Because let me tell you, it ain't Sanelli who's going to tear the house down and who's going to be the next big thing. Sanelli has never been good, and now she's got this dollar store Soberano Jr. heel type gimmick going on. I'm looking at her mannerisms and what she does, and I'm like, oh, she's really trying to ape Soberano Jr. Now, listen, if you're going to copy people, you might as well copy the best, right? You might as well copy the greatest if you're going to, do a tribute act. Might as well be that, right? But, she's no good. She's really not good. And, just seeing her do the act is just a little more depressing, I guess. Like Catalina is good. She's fine. I question as to why they don't try harder with her. I really don't. I don't get it. There's absolutely reasons for that we're just not privy to. Backstage reasons is what I mean. And look, it is what it is. I think she's good, and I think there's more personality. There's more presence there than, again, a lot of women on the roster who wrestle in higher spots than she does. Sure, she was injured for a while. But she's been back for a while as well. They featured her. They had a cosmetic sponsorship recently. Was it with Maybelline? Or it was one of those. It was a fairly well-known cosmetics company, international or North American at the very least, and they were doing spots with La Catalina and Persephone, little sit-down interviews, one-on-one, talking about how it is to be a pro wrestler, a luchadora on one hand, and then, all of the beauty that comes with it, right? And how much expectations are and so on and so forth, and what their routine is then for game day, what kind of face they put on and all that kind of stuff. And La Catalina, like I said, was one of the two, because she's unmasked to begin with. I mean, you're not gonna do a makeup bit, right? You're not gonna do a makeup bit, and have Zeuxis show up, because that wouldn't make sense. So of course you go with people who are unmasked. Persephone happens to be one of now the biggest. The biggest women's wrestler in the company, and La Catalina is there as well, and she's a known quantity, outside of Mexico as well. So I still don't understand. I think she's good. I think she's solid. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't try harder with her, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Anyway, the match itself was fine. Good little match. Good little match in which one wrestler really stood out for me. I mean, those are my notes, and Sanelli stinks. Why don't we give this a 3-star? Why don't we give this the old 3 stars as well? I think, nothing more, but nothing less. Micah, all the way from Stardom, defeated Dark Silhouette. This match, boy, oh boy, was this mediocre. Wow. And this is and Micah as well, who is one of my favorite wrestlers in Stardom. I've always loved her work, and she's in the ring here with Dark Silhouette, and maybe it's the structure of the match that was weird, because it literally was Dark Silhouette in control for 90% of the match, and the match essentially ends when out of nowhere Micah lands her driver, her finisher. It's like 1, 2, 3, okay. But Dark Silhouette had been in control for the majority of the match, and Dark Silhouette is not great either. I don't know. 2.5 stars. I don't have many notes here. It's just okay. Micah had a nice little trip overseas, good for her, but unfortunately she had to wrestle Dark Silhouette. And that brings us to the opener, where Kira, the KIRA girl, and Scotty defeated Candela and Metallica, not Metallica. She was not riding the lightning at all in this match. Good little opener, dynamic. It was good. I think Scotty is. I think as a big wrestler, I think she's very good. I think she's very, very good at what she does. Kira was okay here. Candela and Kira do a Spanish fly to the floor, which was an amazing spot. It's just absolutely frightening. But yeah, of course, everyone was there to catch them, but it's still a scary spot. We're doing 450s and, firemen's carry gutbusters and all that. And it's a good match. Like, once the big spots started to land, it turned into a lot of fun. I think it just took a little moment to get the gears going. But once it started kicking in, it was pretty good. And, a match here that lasted, according to Cage Match, 8 minutes, just over 8 minutes. I could have taken a few more minutes from this one, and you could have, sliced away a little more at the Copa Irma Gonzalez match. This was good, like a 3.25 star match to open things up. It was pretty good. It was good. So as far as so far as wins go, Stardom and CMLL each traded a win. You had Micah defeating Dark Silhouette, and then later on you had the CMLL girls, La Jarochita and Juvia, defeating the Neo Genesis girls. So they each traded one. But the AEW ladies, they both got their wins. But then in the meantime, your big star lost in the main event. So I think it's a good trade-off. The big match with the bigger star, I think, when you're sitting down and negotiating, as to who's going to win, who's going to lose. I think, you're in the main event. It's your bigger star, and they're taking a clean loss on top of that. I think you can be like, yeah, well, maybe my two other matches here, maybe my two other wrestlers are going to win their matches, and you're like, okay, like it makes sense. It's fine. I don't think it would have harmed anyone if Zeuxis had defeated Mina Shirakawa. I don't think it would have harmed Mina in the slightest. If anything, might have got Zeuxis a little heat in Arena Mexico, the good kind, the babyface kind. But hey, we didn't go down that route. So there you go. Little review here for me anyway. 40 minutes? Little review of CMLL's La Noche de la Amazonas. Look, I think the only must-see match on this show is Megan Bayne versus Olympia. I think you should go out of your way to see it. The main event was good, enjoyable. I think it was good. Maybe you'll like it more than I did. If you want to see Mercedes losing all of her titles, it's fine. Look, but you know what? Here's the other thing. You can sit down and watch this entire card from top to bottom. There's two matches you really can skip. The Copa Hermes Gonzalez match and the Micah Dark Silhouette match. I think those two, you just toss them in the bin. Never mind. But you can sit down and just, coast through this match. You can enjoy it. It's a nice little 2 hour of professional wrestling that will respect your time and not make you feel like an idiot. And in these days, that's an expectation that is not always fulfilled. Anyway, that's my review. Those are my thoughts. Let's just wrap it up. All right, let's keep this train rolling here. Are we talking contracts? Are we talking contracts and people getting hired, rehired, fired, released? Whatever. Let's go. Kevin Knight re-signs with AEW. Wait a second. Are you telling me his contract was up? Apparently. Good for you, Kevin Knight, for shutting your mouth and not leaking this stuff into the world. Fightful Select is reporting that Kevin Knight has recently re-signed with the company. He signed a 1-year contract at the start of 2025, but the new contract is now a multi-year deal. It was noticed that Knight is highly regarded within the company. Oh, you don't say. I could never tell. Knight, 29, got his break in pro wrestling as a young lion when he joined New Japan Pro Wrestling in 2020, training at the company's dojo in LA. During his time in the company, he teamed with Kushida, where they held the IWGP Junior Tag Team titles on 2 occasions. What were they called? Intergalactic Jet Setters, right? That was their name. Intergalactic Jet Setters. In January of 2025, Knight chose to leave New Japan and joined AEW, where he and Speedball Mike Bailey quickly formed their Jet Speed tag team, wrestling some of the top teams in the company. They, along with Hangman Adam Page, beat the Ops back in January to win the AEW Trios titles. They proceeded to lose those titles on this week's Dynamite after Don Callis demanded an impromptu title match. Kazuchika Okada, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis emerged as the new champions, pinning Knight. So, so here's my analysis of the situation. Kevin Knight has lost 2 times in one night. He's been buried. His career is unsalvageable at this point. It's a flat out burial. He's dead. He lost 2 times in one night, and there's clearly no real plans for him. It's not as if they give him interview time. It's not as if if only they gave him interview time. If only they gave him like a title, that he might have shared, within a team, a tag team, or a trio or something. If only they had given any signs of any interest in Kevin Knight, but no, he has these segments with Swerve Strickland. If only is Swerve Strickland really one of the top guys in the company? That's my analysis. Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming to the stream. I'm a professional wrestling pundit. Jokes aside, I didn't know. I don't think anyone knew his contract was coming up. And of course you're going to re-sign Kevin Knight. Jesus Christ. like folks, we're comparing him to Mike Bailey because they're a tag team. They came in about at the same time. They're both exciting performers and whatnot. But folks, we have to be honest with each other here. Kevin Knight's ceiling is much higher than Mike Bailey's. And I've been a Kevin Knight believer for a while. Yes, the old hipster in me is coming out, but I've been a believer in him for a while. Seeing him, break out of the young lion mold in New Japan was tremendous. Seeing him evolve, like working with Kushida early on, I'm sure did absolute wonders for him, because they were a terrific tag team. And Kevin Knight has look, we know he's incredibly talented. I was talking about it last week on the review, on the Dynamite review. He's extremely talented. He's got a very high ceiling for in-ring performance. Maybe the mic work is just, needs a little fine tuning, but that's something you can work on and perfect by giving the guy a mic and letting him work it, which he has been doing recently. Cutting promos in the ring, cutting promos with MJF, and they're not having him cut promos, bouncing off of Marina Shafir. They're going up, they're giving him they're giving Kevin Knight MJF to bounce off of. So, there's stuff going on there. He's really good. I like this guy has always been a prospect. And I think he's growing into a role. Tony is slow burning this guy right now. And I am as many people are right now, I am of the opinion that he's on the cusp of a big singles push. And that will come in the form of him turning on Mike Bailey. And I think he's going to join Swerve Strickland as a second. He's going to be... I don't know if you've noticed, chat, but for the past couple of weeks, Nana's been coming out with, embassy stuff, right? Like just this week on Dynamite, he came out, he had a towel and was written the embassy on it, right? So are we dropping hints that we're reforming the embassy or the mogul embassy, right? Are we dropping hints that this is what we're doing? And have we set some breadcrumbs all the way back when Swerve Strickland gave Kevin Knight, that little, hey, don't give up kid speech? Has this been the path we've been on since? Very discreetly, slowly going down this road? I think Kevin Knight as a heel could be really, really interesting. You got to try it. I think there's a lot of good stuff in this. And look, if we're coming back to the signing, because that's ultimately the news, and we're going off track a little bit with speculation and whatnot. This is a no-brainer. You re-sign Kevin Knight and you lock this guy down, and this guy's got a really promising future, and he's got an extremely high ceiling, and it is all up to Kevin Knight to live up to that ceiling. This is where we're at right now, right? Because I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yes, he is an absolute lock to be a top guy, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand when a lot of wrestling observers, not just the Wrestling Observer, but when a lot of wrestling analysts will say, it's like, this guy's ceiling is really high. He's got all the makings to be a world champion. And then the person doesn't turn out to be a world champion. It's like, you thought he was going to be a world champion. I said, no, he's got the stuff to be a world champion. He's got the stuff to be a top guy, but it's entirely up to him or her. It's entirely up to that person to live up to the expectation or not, or to live up to their talent. It's not even a question of expectation. So does Kevin Knight have the drive? We're about to find out. And that's exciting. We're going to find out sooner than later this year whether or not Kevin Knight has the drive to be a top singles guy in the company. I'm very much looking forward to to the Kevin Knight push. Yeah, see, a lot of people say, "Oh, the big swerve." No, it's Mike Bailey joining the embassy, and I'm like, come on, folks, think about it for just a second, okay? I want you to think about this for a second. Mike Bailey, lovely French Canadian young lad, okay, with his fucking mullet and his shaved sides and his geek gear, joining the embassy with Swerve Strickland, whose entire thing is, I'm so fucking cool and I will surround myself only with cool people. Come on now. Come on. Now, yes, Mike Bailey has been a heel. We've seen him he's a good heel. But also at the same time, people really like Mike Bailey. And Mike Bailey he's a good force for positivity too. Stands up for a lot of causes that a lot of people feel attached to. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily, anyway. Sometimes you don't have to work all that hard for a swerve. Sometimes you just have to do what you need to do, right? Are we getting Trench back? God, I hope. I think I'm the only person who wants to see Trench again, because it's just way too funny. Trench, Parker, Camille, the best in the pantheon of leaving before they finished saying hello. Trench was never given a fair shake. Parker Boudreaux was given more of a fair shake. Remember when he was in that group? Oh shit! It was with Sonny Kiss. Sonny Kiss and Slim J, and wasn't it Arya Davari who was in there too? Do you remember this? I'm not dreaming this, right? Sonny Kiss was in this group. The Trust Busters. Exactly. Thank you, Chad. The Trust Busters. I love that. I unironically love that group. I unironically loved it. And the conglomeration, the Trust Busters walked so the conglomeration could run. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, see, Mike Bailey is a good person. He's the definition of a baby face. We have to stop trying to think that we're smarter than everyone else. And it's like, oh, but I think this, no. Like the obvious play here and the better play, if you're going to turn anyone heel in this group here, it's is turning our boy Kevin Knight here. Blake Christian is all elite. I mean, we all pretty much knew. I don't think this comes as a shock, but following collision on Saturday night in Tucson, where Christian and his tag partner Lee Johnson participated in the $200,000 four-way tag team match, Tony Khan posted to social media that Christian is officially all elite. Khan wrote, The Swirl, Vanilla Baby, Blake Christian, and Big Shotty Lee had another excellent showing on Saturday's AEW Collision tonight. And now it's official, Blake Christian is all elite. The other member of the Swirl, Lee Johnson, received his all elite graphic from AEW all the way back in February 2021. Johnson is listed on the AEW wrestling roster page, while Christian does not currently have a profile on the page. I think that's been fixed since this article has been printed. As a reminder, right, Christian had a brief run in WWE as Trey Baxter, where he was released from the company that November and made his debut on an episode of Dark the following March. You know, the only thing I remember from the Blake Christian NXT run, because I was still watching at that time, was him. He was one of the guests of the wedding of Indy Hartwell and mute serial killer guy, Sam Shepard. Well, what did they call Dexter Loomis? It was, and he was one of the guests there, and he said something. They did the forever hold your peace thing, and he said something, and I don't remember what, but I remember laughing out loud, saying, "Okay, that was actually really funny," but I don't remember what he said. Anyway, that just goes to show you That just goes to show you. But right, like wasn't 205 Live still around at that point? And a lot of people were thinking, oh, he's going to end up on 205 Live and whatnot. And then they killed 205 Live too. And look, it doesn't matter. Look, Blake Christian has always been, look, the thing with Blake Christian is that he's always been a terrific pro wrestler. He's always been a terrific professional wrestler. What he has never been able to what had been keeping him back was his presence, his look, his hair. We all remember the instances, the multiple instances of Blake Christian doing things with his hair. Okay, like this is probably like the least savage thing that he's ever done with his hair, right? This is probably the most controllable, right? And there's just always been something that it's always just like kept him back from creating like a big time crowd connection. Like he's one of these guys that you have a tendency to say he's a perfect small room guy. And then when he moves on to working the big times and in the big rooms and whatnot, he doesn't project enough to be perceived as a big time pro wrestler. So he had a lot of, I hate to use it this way because it sounds very, very condescending, but I don't want it to be. He's very small room energy. And I think that's always been something that's held him back, right? That's always been something that's held him back from actually having an outright crowd connection. Do I think it's perfect now? No. But I do think he's improved. I do think I don't think he's in the same awkward spots that he was many, many moons ago. And I think he's also switched up his I think something also significant that he's done is that he switched up his arsenal a bit so that the stuff that he does a lot of things. Let me say that again. He doesn't do as many risky things now as opposed to when he started working AEW a little more. And what I mean by risky things is not things that would put him in danger, but things that required a little more connection and understanding, a little more charisma between you and your opponent, where he tries to do things that he do a lot on the indies and would just fire off without a hitch, but somehow just didn't translate as well doing them in an AEW ring for multiple reasons, right? There could be multiple reasons. And I think refocusing his arsenal of moves to do things that he'll be more confident are going to land is good. And it hasn't taken away the spectacular shit that he does either, right? Like he doesn't do the moonsault into the slop drop anymore, or at least I haven't seen him all that much, because that's something that when he hits it looks great, but when it fumbles, when it flops, it just looks like shit. So all these little things that he's done, I think are good. And yeah, I mean, look, all the more power to him. I'm glad. We all knew he was part of the fabric in one way or another. It was just a question of time, but good for him that he got his graphic. So do we see Blake in AEW or his Ring of Honor, his speed? That's an excellent question. As it stands right now, I don't see how he fits right now in AEW. And here's the thing too. Yeah, and again, I really don't want this to come across as condescending or whatnot, but not everyone in wrestling can be a top guy. Not everyone can be a winner. And when you're a promoter, sometimes you need guys who can just go out there and lose. And maybe that's going to be his lot as well. Now, he's a terrific heel. I think he's a very good heel. He's got great heel mannerisms. I think he has a way to rub the crowd the wrong way. Yeah, and I agree. I think Blake Christian also knows he's not a top guy. He's going to be slotted in a role. This is my prediction. He's going to be slotted in a role, and he's going to be comfortable in that role, and he's going to do that role to the best of his ability. Like he'll probably be like, okay, you want me to be a plumber type of player, then I'm going to be the best goddamn plumber that the world has ever seen. And we're going to remember him for that. I think that's probably going to be. Still on the AEW news, Tony Khan says Penelope Ford could be out for weeks, possibly months. Fucking sucks, dude. Article off of postwrestling.com. It appears it will be a while before Penelope Ford can make an in-ring return. AEW president Tony Khan released a video on social media ahead of Collision on Saturday, providing an update on Ford's status. Khan did not specify the injury Ford suffered. This is what he said here. Penelope Ford, it looks like, unfortunately, will be out with an injury, maybe for weeks, possibly up for months. Ford suffered what was reported to be an ankle injury during a tag match on Dynamite on February 26. It was suspected that she suffered the injury when attempting a moonsault off the top rope to the outside. The match between the Babes of Wrath and Megabad ended abruptly when Lena Cross disqualified the challengers by attacking Willow Nightingale with a title belt. Collision featured Megan Bayne teaming up with Lena Cross to defeat the Timeless Love Bombs. Ford had recently returned from injury, coming back in January after spending a few months away from the ring due to a torn UCL. This fucking sucks for Penelope Ford. Like, regardless of how you feel about her and how much you like her, how much you enjoy her work, it fucking sucks. Out for months because of an injury, you come back, you do the moonsault, and you injure yourself again, and you might be gone for a while again. Like, come on. Like, it's stop, start. And now, like, she is clearly right now in the push of her career. There has not been an other instance of her time in AEW, in anywhere else, where she has been so consistently pushed and featured and in, a significant act than what she's in right now. And that blows. That legitimately blows, because she's probably at home, icing her whatever and thinking to herself that this fucking sucks because this momentum is not going to last forever. There's a lot of things here that really do stink. So it sucks for her. Hopefully she gets back into full operating mode very soon. Wish her the best. Hope she comes back soon. Wrestlers who don't catch opponents should be fined. I mean, look, everyone, and find the Miz. You've got an entire history. Look, I know there was a big pile on Harley Cameron for not living up to the situation here, but look, this shit happens. Sometimes guys just don't catch guys. It just happens for multiple reasons, And then you've got Mike the Miz, who is legendary for not catching people, and this guy's still running around collecting a paycheck and no one says a goddamn word. You know what I mean? Mike the Miz never catches anyone who dives. He never does. So, then Harley Cameron gets bullied off of Twitter. Look, that being said, count your blessings. You should be off Twitter regardless, Harley. Just leave Twitter. You're listening. It's fine. That someone may have given you a service right here. But, this shit happens. And, I would assume, and I think I would assume correctly, that Harley did not intentionally decide to not catch Penelope. I also think it's a situation where whoever agents the matches need to be less ambitious than what wrestlers like Harley is told to do. That's also fair. I mean, should you be doing moonsaults if you came back from a UCL injury? The agent should definitely have something to say. I think it's time to come back to have a full circle conversation and someone like put their foot down and say, what do agents actually do? What do agents actually fucking do? Especially when it comes to matches like with Hangman Adam Page and MJF, or like a John Moxley match. What the agent sits down and says, okay, Mox, tell me what you're going to do. And then that agent is going to tell Mox what he can and cannot do. Like, You got to tell me. You got to tell me what these agents do to begin with. I think as wrestling fans, because there's so much shit that gets put into the producer of the match was this guy and that gal, and then like, who fucking cares? The producer? The guy who told them, okay, the guy who sat down with these wrestlers to lay out the match, whereas these are professional wrestlers and they should be able to lay out their matches themselves? We need to come back around to the essential question is like, what do agents actually do? What are they for? Or producers or whatever name you want to give them. I just want to know. Make it clear to me how an agent okaying this or not makes it better. The moonsault spot with Penelope Ford and Harley Cameron. How does agenting this make it better? How would this be their fault? How could they have prevented it? I just want to know. I need to understand because I don't understand I don't understand what they're for more than ever. Anyway, let's move on. Because we've got more signings in AEW. I'm going to read this article off the Wrestling Observer Figure 4 Online. The former Ashante the Adonis is officially under AEW contract and has been for 6 months, according to Fightful Select. Tehuti Miles debuted during Saturday's Ring of Honor tapings in Jacksonville, Florida, with the outlet noting that he actually signed with AEW the first week of September. Miles hasn't wrestled anywhere since a loss to Ricky Saints last June on WWE NXT. His deal ran out on August 10 and signed with his new home a month later. It's unclear what took so long for him to make his debut or why he didn't work any indie dates. All right. The 36-year-old signed with WWE in 2019, debuting in NXT. He worked frequently on the 205 Live show and eventually was part of Hit Row. God, that feels like 50 years ago now. When you think of Hit Row, it feels like so long ago. It's still only 2019. I mean, we're getting on to a decade, but it's still not that far off. Along with Swerve Strickland, AJ Francis, and B-Fab, who is the only remaining member left within WWE. Josh, is that you? Yes, it is. He, Francis, and B-Fab were eventually called up to the main roster in August 2022 before returning to NXT in the summer of 24. He has never held WWE or NXT gold. I mean, okay. I haven't seen this guy wrestle in so long. I don't know. I do not know what to add other than just saying this is news and I have no analysis to go with it. I've got no analysis. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe he's just, maybe he's, I don't know. I haven't seen him wrestle. Look, I haven't seen him wrestle in such a long time. I have no idea if he's any good anymore. I have no clue. I have no thoughts on this other than it's weird. Because, okay, here's the analysis. It's not as if Ashante the Adonis was tearing it up in WWE. It's not as if he was like this, a Javon Evans type where they're just letting him go out there and he does all this spectacular stuff week after week. And then, people that have daily podcasts on large networks, then all they do is talk about this one guy, right? It's not as if I can't help but wonder, why he would have been scooped up in the first place. This is a guy who he's never shined. He's never done anything. Do you think he might be rejoining Swerve over there in the Mogul Embassy? Anyway, that's the extent of it. I just wanted to mention that outside of the fact that it's extremely weird that he's been gone for so long. Outside of that. Okay, let's go with this here. I think if we wait too long, it won't be much of a story anymore. We had a report It came out last week from Fightful Select saying that 2 wrestlers from TNA had reportedly quit the promotion. Sean Ross Sapp wrote on Thursday that Mance Warner and Steph DeLander had left the promotion. The outlet later reported on its Patreon that they were told the departures stem from TNA refusing to clear DeLander to return from injury, with DeLander having been told she would never be able to wrestle for the promotion again. The 29-year-old DeLander had been out of action since August 2024 and underwent neck fusion surgery on her C5 and C6 vertebrae that October. In January, she revealed that she was 100% healed from the procedure and ready to return to the ring. My neck is 100% healed and I have been cleared by my surgeon to return to the ring. I need guidance from a medical professional to ensure safety so I can get back to doing what I love. I have asked so many times, can anyone help me? TNA, WWE, and AEW, she had tweeted out. Fightful noted that one source in TNA wrestling believed Warner and DeLander could finish up with the promotion after the current loop of tapings. TNA is scheduled to hold television tapings at the Gateway Center Arena in Atlanta on March 6 and 7, followed by additional tapings in New Orleans, on March 27 and 28. Spoiler alert, they're not going to finish up with TNA because, this news sort of dropped and everyone thought it was kind of weird. And then Steph DeLander headed on to TMZ, a TMZ wrestling podcast. Apparently they have that now, to speak on her departure. And she did not hold back. She was very transparent about stuff. Steph DeLander spoke about her departure from TNA Wrestling in a new interview. She told TMZ on Thursday that TNA president Carlos Silva informed her on Monday that the company was not going to allow her to wrestle again in the promotion following her spinal fusion surgery in October 2024. She added that her surgeon has fully cleared her to return. Here's a quote here from DeLander, and it is a wild one. I actually went to WWE's spinal surgeon to do the surgeries, and I got clearance a few weeks ago, she said. I received a phone call on Monday of this week that basically they never wanted to let me wrestle at TNA again. They just didn't feel comfortable with that. So then I made the decision to leave, and my husband did too in solidarity. Duh. Good guy, Mance. DeLander said TNA made the call that they were not comfortable with her wrestling again without evaluating her medical history or speaking with her surgeon. I was like, well, I'm literally fully cleared. And he said, he being Carlos Silva, yep, not into it. And then I asked, do you know what my injury is? And he didn't know. He couldn't tell me what my injury was. What a fucking guy. This Carlos Silva, man, it's definitely based off personal feelings. I have not been evaluated by any medical professional on the TNA end. They haven't evaluated my medical history. They haven't contacted my surgeon. They haven't looked at any of my medical stuff. It's just they made a personal decision. This fucking guy, this fucking little weasel who couldn't get any fucking deals with any fucking networks until Daddy WWE, until he started cozying up with WWE so that Daddy WWE could introduce him to some people, could open some doors and make some calls. Fucking little weasel. Wowzers has to be on TV with his fucking off-brand cap, and has to see his face all the time, getting into the ring and putting the titles on the title winners, and he's such a little. He's a worm. That's worm behavior. Yeah, that's a worm. That's a worm, folks. DeLander also mentioned during the interview that she had a second surgery that was not previously known, saying that her surgeon wanted to put a little more hardware in her neck. It sounds like when I used to. It sounds like me playing Cyberpunk 2077. She said she paid for both her surgeries and physical therapy. Oh, really? Oh, you mean the company for which you worked and that you got injured working for did not spring for your surgery? Paid for both my surgeries. She said I paid for my PT for both of them. My insurance maxed out, so I currently have a $9,000 Advent health bill sitting there. Congratulations. Good fucking job. Once again, fucking TNA, right? Who couldn't even manage to pay for Chris Bay getting fucking paralyzed, wrestling for them. The guy had to put up a GoFundMe because his fucking company couldn't be bothered to pay his fucking health bills. And they're at it again. Like, I understand that the deal that they have right now is not the mind-blowing end-all deal that was going to truly make them into the number 2 promotion in the land. Oh, Warren, did you hear any details? Are you sure about this? Are you sure that it's not a great deal? Yes, I'm sure it's not a great deal, because if it was a great deal, the details would have been leaked. If they were making money hand over fist, let me tell you, someone would be bragging about it. But it's been complete and utter zero talk about it. There's nothing on the radar. Nothing is coming out. All that it means that it's an embarrassing deal. That's all it means. It's embarrassing. And they don't want to put it out there. It's embarrassing. And you know what? An ad split wouldn't even be embarrassing. It would not. It's actually pretty normal. When you're starting off with the new property or whatever, you sort of test the waters to see how it's going to go. Yeah, we'll go with an ad split instead of a full-on media deal. That makes a lot of sense. But all of these assholes have all been pumping up the fact, oh, they're going to get a huge deal and so on. They're going to get a huge, tremendous deal, huge media deal, and it's going to be huge. And they're going to be the number 2 promotion after this big media deal that they're going to get. Because of all of this fucking hype, now they don't want to say a single word because they didn't get the big media deal. Because they got something else, and now they're embarrassed. Now they don't want to make a fool out of themselves. They're like, oh, we can't talk about it. We told everyone we're going to get a big media deal. I'm going to hammer this home again. I'm going to hammer this home one more time. Okay, Warren Hayes, broken record, but here we go again. It is fascinating to me that the details of this deal haven't even leaked to the trades. I'm not talking the wrestling dirt sheets. I'm talking the Hollywood trades, the Hollywood Reporter, Variety. You know, the AEW deal was leaked to one of those two. I don't remember. I think it was the Hollywood Reporter. It doesn't matter. But usually what happens is that people who are involved with the networks on any level, you know, they're sources to journalists at these places, at these rags, right? And, you know, the journalist will call the sources and say, hey, you got anything for me? Anything juicy? And no one goes, oh yeah, you know that TNA thing? Here's what the deal looks like. I'll send it to you in the Telegram chat. You know, none of that. It's preposterous. If it was a good deal, we'd know about it. If it was a good deal, we'd know. But they're embarrassed and they don't want to talk about it. And no, they're not making money hand over fist. I just watched the debut on AMC, and you look at that level of production, there is not an extra single dime that has been put in any level of production. They are not making money. Back to Delander here. Delander also mentioned that she had a one level fusion, something many wrestlers have had before making full recoveries and returning to the ring. She says this following quote: I had a 1-level cervical spinal fusion of my C5, C6 vertebrae, which is like the most basic, straightforward neck injury that so many wrestlers in WWE and AEW have had before fully recovering and returning to the ring. I did not break my neck. That's not what happened. It's so scuzzy. It's, you know, it's like, you know, and then to wrap it all up, well, you know, they showed up at GCW this weekend. Good for them. Good for both of them. You know what's actually, you know what, I don't know how anyone outrightly like capes for this TNA organization. I don't know how anyone can can put up shields and barricades and stick up for the TNA organization. You know, Carlos Silva is such a fucking worm. He's a worm, and he's not paying for the people that work for him and get injured on his dime. That's preposterous. That is absolutely preposterous. Look, I don't know what to. I'm sure you all share the same feeling. It's all nonsense. It's all absolute fucking nonsense. So I'm glad. I'm glad she was able to get the surgery. It sucks that she's in debt. I'm showing back up in GCW. Both of them, they won't be want for work on the independents. Who knows? Old Mance showed up on an episode of Rampage all the way back. I don't know if you remember this. He showed up one night, fought John Moxley. Right? They gave him a little pre-match promo, and I remember it distinctly because all the usual suspects screamed to the top of their lungs, "What's the story? Who is this guy? Why am I supposed to care? Blah blah blah." The usual stuff, right? It's back when Tony when Tony was not afraid to book cool matches. Now Tony's afraid to book cool matches because everything has to have a story now. Everything has to connect because he spent his time listening to fucking losers on Twitter instead of listening to his fans who would keep telling him over and over, "Tony, it's fine. It's fine. Don't listen to them. I don't need a promo package to explain to me who Mance Warner is. It's fine." Let's talk about this before we wrap it up. AEW announces the signing of New Japan Faction following surprise Dynamite appearance. What? What are we talking about? What's going on? Amid plenty of discussion in the past months about his status with New Japan Pro Wrestling and interest from WWE, David Finlay made a surprise appearance on Wednesday's AEW Dynamite along some old friends. Now, Finlay, Clark Connors, and the Gabe Kid are officially under AEW contract as The Dogs, announced by Tony Khan on X, Twitter. Parentheses, why isn't Tony Khan not using Blue Sky? Like, his most devout fan base is on Blue Sky. That's what he should be doing. Anyway. Finlay appeared after Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin's victory over Connors and Kidd, hitting both Allin and Cassidy with a shillelagh. The three stood tall afterward, reuniting three key members of the Bullet Club War Dogs faction from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Hey, you know what? Maybe Alex Coughlin is coming up next. Maybe Carl Fredericks is going to. It's unclear as of this time whether the three men are under dual contracts with New Japan or exclusive to AEW. Fightful did report shortly thereafter that Finlay's deal is for multiple years and came together over the week. Kidd and Connors have been regulars on AEW TV over the past month, feuding with Allin. Finlay has wrestled once in AEW, losing to Hangman Page back in June 2022. Finlay's contract expired with New Japan in February, but he continued to wrestle through the last weekend's New Beginning USA. Kidd's last New Japan match came mid-February, and Connors last appeared for the promotion at January's New Year Dash. It was reported by Fightful that Finlay and WWE had been in contact, but that he wasn't factored into any plans. It was noted on Twitter that the 3rd, 4th, and 5th leaders of Bullet Club are now under AEW contract. I pointed that out. And I'm not on Twitter. That was me. I was completely floored when I saw Dave Finlay pop up on my screen on Dynamite last night. I did not believe what I was seeing. It's like, excuse me. And I let out a guttural, like, what? And Kristen, we were watching it, and Kristen sort of looks at me and she says, what? What's the big deal? What's Dave Finlay? And she says, okay. So she's right. But that's the thing. Like, you know, if you've been around for the last few podcasts, the last few streams, you know, over the past, you know, month and a half easily, we've been talking constantly, or not constantly, but often about David Finlay and his New Japan contract. And that's why I was so shocked. Because look, I promise you, in the things that I heard in the dark, the dark whisper chambers that exist out there, in everything that I heard, the constant was AEW has no interest in David Finlay. That was constantly what I heard. Nope, they're not into him. No interest is what I'd hear. That's the thing that would resonate all the time. And now, turn around and he shows up in AEW, I'm completely stunned. So I can understand that the guy is like, he goes to WWE. Like he's finally done with WWE, right? And we talked about this recently. He's finally done with WWE, with New Japan. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go test out free agency. No interest from AEW. He gets an offer from WWE where they're basically saying to him, we can hire you, but, we're not all that interested. You're not a star. So what we're going to do, because this is reportedly, he was offered to be a player coach in NXT, right? Basically helping out the new kids, wrestling, but never with the promise of being somewhere bigger, because they just didn't see the potential in him. And it's for NXT money. So he's probably like, yeah, you know what? This sucks. And I swear to you, I had even heard, and we talked about this. I had even heard that New Japan had reached back out to New Japan to say, well, look, what if I came back? What if I resigned? And from what I understand, New Japan would have gladly taken him back. There's no hard feelings. No one was upset. Finlay, they would have kept him around. Finlay just wanted to go do something else. He wanted to try out free agency. He wanted to come wrestle in the States. That's what he wanted to do. So they do. So New Japan, and not New Japan, but WWE do the offer. It's not what he wants. And so like I said, we hear the rumors that he might be going back to New Japan, that it's in the cards. And then he shows up. At the New Beginning in USA show this past weekend, wrestles Fred Rosser, and he beats him. So, anyone with half a brain sort of shrugs their shoulders, points at the screen and goes, oh, well, okay, so he is indeed coming back then. He's back. He's not going anywhere. He might take a little break, but he's going to come back, isn't he? And then like 4 days later, shows up on fucking All Elite Wrestling television. And I'm like, okay, what a trip, what a ride this one was. Because all the things that I heard have been, they've come from, they've all been coming from different spots. So they all came across as being very credible because they were coming from a multitude of sources, essentially. And everyone was saying essentially the same thing. So it all connected, it all made sense. It turns out old Dave here was like, he had another ace up his sleeve. Now, like Fightful reported, the deal came together this week. So very quickly, it came together very quickly over the course of the past week. But on top of that, Fightful also reported that Dave Finlay was done with New Japan. Because again, I was watching Dynamite last night. He does his run-in, and the segment ends, and then his New Japan music plays, his War Dogs music plays. And I'm like, oh, okay, so then it's probably a dual contract then. Because they're playing the music, and he won at a New Japan show just a couple of days ago. So, all of this is probably some really good messaging that Dave Finlay is still going to be involved with New Japan in some way or another. But then Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp is out there saying, nope, he's done. He's done with New Japan. Like, this is like, remember we were talking about how exciting this contract season has been. And, now things are kind of winding up because contract season is pretty much over. Everyone's sort of fallen on their feet and signed and got re-signed and whatnot. What a fucking denouement to this one. Like, this has been this has been like the true storyline throughout the entirety of contract season that ends with the biggest twist. It ends with the biggest twist. I mean, good for him. Look, good for him if he called up Tony Khan and Tony Khan was like, yeah, you know what? I could bring you in and you could actually wrestle and no player coach bullshit and I'll give you more money than whatever you're getting at NXT. Good for him if he did that. This is what two promotions are for. That's fine. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know what Dave Finlay would have done here. Like, people meme about and talking about even in the chat was like, he could have been a member of the Birthright group, Yeah, going over there to slum it with fucking Brian Pillman Jr. Like, yeah, sure. That sounds rad. Ultimately, I'm happy for him. And I think here's what I'm thinking. And maybe I should preface this just in case you're new here. I like David Finlay, and I've liked David Finlay for a couple of years at this point. I don't want to say forever. I don't want to say for a long time because that would be lying. But for the past 2 years or so, I found that his presence and his in-ring presence has developed into something really, really cool, right? Like, the way he wrestles, the way he conducts himself, he's a bully. That's always how I like to refer to him. He's a bully. He's a guy who comes in, he'll be a dirtbag. He's strong as an ox. So he'll throw you around in ways that you weren't expecting. He's a bully. He comes in and he bullies his opponents around. And I appreciate that because it's an energy that really didn't necessarily exist in New Japan. And I think he's good at that role. When commentary says, Dave Finlay, sneaky strong guy, he really is strong. He's a super strong dude. But he doesn't have show muscles. He has shoot muscles. He doesn't have work muscles. He's got shoot muscles. He's legitimately strong. And I think that one of the reasons why people would really get on David Finlay's case is because of the fact that he was positioned as a top guy or in these upper echelons. And you could see him having a trajectory into the world championship in New Japan Pro Wrestling, right? You could see that trajectory going this way. And a lot of people saw that, and seeing who he was, they did. I think a lot of people became very adverse to him because he was put in these spots that maybe he didn't belong in. David Finlay has a lot of qualities in the ring. I would say charisma is not one of his strengths, not at least not on the level that you expect your top guys to have, your world champions to have. Like, absolutely not on that level. So when I think of David Finlay in AEW, I'm thinking, well, he's a perfect mid-card guy. Perfect for the spot here. Because if you try to right now, you look at David Finlay and you're like, is he going to go hang with Will, with Swerve, with Kenny, with MJF, with Hangman? He's going to go hang with those guys. And even the guys that are on the come up like Bandito. And there's a disconnect there. But you have him hanging around with guys like Darby, upper mid-card guys. I don't have an issue with it. Mark Briscoe. He fits in perfectly. And I legitimately think that a Dave Finlay running the mid card in AEW for a while, I think we might discover things about Dave Finlay that we will enjoy, because I think he'll be used to his strengths. I think he'll be used in an environment that will just make sense for his potential. And who knows, maybe he will grow organically into a real top guy. That I'm a little more doubtful of. But Dave Finlay, mid-card stalwart of All Elite Wrestling, winning TNT titles and national titles, sure, anytime. That absolutely works for me, brother. I like Dave Finlay's work more than the opposite. And I really think that the issue that most people have / had with Finlay was due to the fact that he was positioned to be a top guy, that he was on his way, that's how he was being groomed by Gedo over there in New Japan, and people weren't into it because he's missing something. He was missing something for that upper crust in New Japan. Like, his ceiling was global title, and I think that's fine. I think that's absolutely fine. We even tried to give him the world title shots, and that didn't work out, and no one batted an eye. Everyone was like, yeah, no, that's fine. So listen, it's the conclusion, the denouement of a hell of a tale that happened throughout contract season. It was a great story, twists and turns, and a big shocking big twist. It's a big twist. But there you go. I mean, I think that's good. It's good. I happy for him. And I think he's going to find, I think he is going to be able to carve a nice little niche out for himself in AEW outside of a world title situation, in an environment where he doesn't have to be considered a world title caliber performer. I think he's going to do great, and better than if he had hung around NXT on top of that. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you very much for sticking around all to the very end here. And if you haven't already, hey, a 5-star rating, a 5-star review, all those things would be fantastic, per usual. Just a little last minute reminder. I will be back tomorrow, Thursday, with a brand new review of AEW Dynamite, as we are wont to do on Thursdays. This is, of course, going to be a review of the Go Home show for AEW Revolution. So that's going to be cool. We're also going to do a preview of Revolution on stream tomorrow night on Thursday evening as well. So that's tremendous. If you do like to come over to YouTube and hang out on the streams, please be forewarned. There will not be a stream on Monday because I will be recording instead my review of Revolution. So that's so unfortunately the stream's going to get the bump, but there's still content coming your way. And of course, the review will be available in early access to members of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel, YouTube channel. I don't know why I'm hesitating. It will be available in early access for members of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show YouTube channel. There you go. Wasn't that hard, Warren? So there you go. That's the long and short of it. We'll let you go now. Thank you all so very much for being here, and I will see you next time.